evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Blather 276, an American problem. And just in case you're doubting what kind of American problem we're talking about, there we go. With Iran's beeper moment, we are witnessing the end of the Islamic Republic in real time. Israel, having first degraded Iran's proxies in Gaza, the West Bank, Yemen, Lebanon, and Syria, is finally going for the head of the serpent. Good news for the world, bad news for Russia and China. As the Israeli Air Force flew in and out of Iran with impunity, taking military facilities, fuel storage tanks, anti aircraft batteries, and nuclear facilities with abandon, decapitating the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian Air Force, and in a surprising move, the Quds force, as the Mossad agent who led it returned home. The bluster of the Iranian regime began to crumble, and the Iranian people erupted in hope. At this very moment, known Chinese and Russian agents in the West began yet another idiotic campaign to demoralize and isolate Israel. World War III, they exclaimed. Israel is starting the mother of all wars. We don't want our soldiers to fight Israel's wars. This is not America's problem, and so on ad nauseum. Well, good news. Israel is fighting our war. Iran has been an American problem since the retarded peanut farmer betrayed the Shah and rescued Khomeini from French oblivion. It was an American problem when the regime ushered in by Jimmy the Moron overrun the U.S. embassy in Tehran and took our diplomats hostage for well over a year, until the day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, promising to level the place if they were not released immediately. It was an American problem when hundreds of Marines were killed in Beirut by an Iran proxy, or when our embassy in Beirut was blown up twice, killing 63 people, including a score of Americans. It was an American problem with Iranian IEDs planted by Iranian operatives killed and maimed hundreds of American soldiers in Iraq. Between November 2005 and December 2011 only, 1,526 EFPs killed a total of 196 troops and injured 861. According to the Pentagon, the official estimate on the number of U.S. troops in Iraq who were killed by Iranian-backed militias is at least 603. It was an American problem when Americans were targeted, taken hostage, killed, and wounded all around the world in terrorist attacks carried out by Iran or its minions from Buenos Aires to Paris, from Bali to Madrid. It was an American problem when they tried to kill President Bush, threatened to kill President Trump, and actually failed in an attempt to do so as recently as July last. It was an American problem throughout the 46 years that America has been forced to spend billions upon billions to contain Iran. Fleets protecting Hormuz and the free trade between Asia and the Arab Gulf. Fleets in the Eastern Mediterranean, bases in Qatar, Jordan, Syria, Kuwait. Fleets in the Red Sea to protect shipping. The total amount exceeds $1 trillion. And I can't hear a peep from the otherwise budget-conscious isolationists. And Iran is an American problem today, as it continues to develop nuclear weapons and long-range ballistic missiles for the stated purpose of annihilating the great Satan. Yes, that's you. And don't get me started with Iran's tragic comical alliance with China and Russia. I told you it was bad news for them. China, because bypassing sanctions in violation of the same UN resolutions they like to invoke when it suits them, has been financing terror in exchange for cheap energy for a long time. That game is over. Russia, because the giant with mud feet can no longer manufacture teapots, and it has become dependent on Iranian drones for its war effort in Ukraine. No more drones then, unless we count the parasite-ridden Norco soldiers as such. America should have done this a long, long time ago. It took the Israelis backed into an existential corner since October 7th to clean up America's and Europe's mess. Europe's betrayal of the world, driven by the irrational and visceral anti Semitism, deserves another chapter indeed. So, Godspeed, Israel. And as they continue to systematically destroy the terror headquarters, may the US wisen up and assist them when necessary. And may the world be finally rid of these throwbacks and the reign of terror. But especially, may the people of Iran be free from these cruel bastards. I hope the memory of Masha Amini and so many of the martyrs of this terrorist regime serve as a reminder that we should not have and should not now tolerate such savagery amongst us. I'm Israel High, and this is Solmontes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from my perch in Virginia. And right next to me, Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and savant extraordinaire, suffering patiently with the patience of Job, the shenanigans of Karen Bass and Governor Gruesome, which is enough to give anybody a stomach ache and a ball ache. Thomas, I'm not going to ask you about your balls, but how is your stomach doing?
It's okay. I guess before we start the show, we should acknowledge that today a Minnesota state representative was murdered and her husband was murdered. And then a state senator and his wife were shot by the same guy. And what is happening, of course, is that people are instantly trying to assign politics to the murderer, and the murderer was a registered Republican in 2022. We don't know what he was before that. He's allegedly an anti-abortion fanatic, but his roommate said he hasn't spoken about abortion for years. This, in my mind, he's going to be like there was a mass shooter at a mall in Texas, and he was a Mexican Nazi who supported both Trump and Bernie Sanders, and so they're going to find out he's completely insane. He left a manifesto. I don't know if you saw the pictures of him wearing his. They claim that he was driving a car and wearing that looked like a police car, and was wearing what looked like a police uniform. I've seen the pictures of the car, and it says Praetorian in giant letters down the side, because
that's the company he works for.
Exactly. And he also his jacket said Praetorian across the front.
Yeah.
And he was wearing the shittiest Halloween mask I've ever seen. It was like an old man mask made of latex, not silicone. And you could see these two deep black holes where his eyes had to be. And unfortunately, both politicians opened the door to him. And, he murdered one couple and shot the other couple. But I mean, we shouldn't start pointing fingers politically, because I mean, it's clear that one side is more violent than the other. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yep. This guy, by the way, was also an appointed officer in the Tim Walz administration. They appointed him for a workforce board or something like that, where he had served for 4 years during the Dayton administration and was currently serving under the Walz administration, who reappointed him 2 years ago. So politically, it's rather confusing. But you're absolutely right. This is going to be, like you and I always say, it's all boiled down to mental illness. This guy's off his fucking rocker.
Yeah, and you asked me about life in LA. I saw the Marines today forcing people away from a federal building, and the Marines are armed with their rifles, and there was some idiot yelling, "Shoot me, bitch! Shoot me, bitch! Shoot me, bitch!" And it's like he doesn't want to be shot. He's play acting. They're all play acting, and
Yep. And
you
they
know,
are positively sure, they're positive and convinced that no, the Marine is not going to shoot him.
of course, the guy doesn't want to be shot. He's
No.
pretending, and you know,
Then they go to Egypt, do the same thing, and get the guns up their ass.
well, that's. I mean, for people who don't know, a bunch of European and Turkish idiots. I guess there were a couple of Arabs with them, or at least people who spoke Arabic. Decided that they were going to go to Egypt and storm the border between Egypt and Gaza. And the Egyptians, the lucky people, had their passports confiscated and then they were deported. And the unlucky ones had the absolute tar beat out of them by both the police, the state security, and average people. Um, and they couldn't understand why. There was a video, an insufferable video of a Welsh madman who was crying, and he was screeching, and his screeches are being translated to Arabic. He's screeching to a wall of immovable Egyptian riot police and asking them if they knew what a woman's breasts smelled like when they were empty of milk. Why? What are you talking about? He lost control and he started spewing his sexual fantasies. I mean, it was just, and he had a suit bowl haircut. Um, so this was mind-boggling. This is mind-boggling that they actually did this. They went to Egypt and they thought the Egyptians would say, "Oh, let all the white saviors through," because they were all white. I didn't see a single black or Asian
No.
person there.
Did, did, did you see the Canadian or Brit on the verge of a breakdown? Do not follow orders. Let us go. They are killing people there. We just want to go there. Don't follow orders. How long do you think that asshole would survive in an Egyptian prison?
Well, I saw a picture of an Egyptian cop in the doorway of a bus taking a nap, and it said in the subtitle, "Egyptian police officer weeps after being forced to stop." And I was like, he's snapping. He's not weeping. What are you talking about? Like the Egyptians. See, there's a guy named Carl something or other. His channel is I can't remember. He's got a podcast called The Lotus Eaters, and he was just describing the mindset of these people, saying that they went to Egypt thinking they were going to tell the Egyptians what to do, as if the Egyptians would go, "Oh, oh my God, you're right, oh white savior. Oh my God, yes, we'll let you through because obviously you know best." And they didn't understand that if you go to a country like Egypt and you start giving them orders, they're going to start whipping you with the distributor belts from cars. Those are favorite whipping devices. And I saw them deployed, and these people were they were linking arms. They were sitting on their fat bottoms and linking arms, and they were shouting, "We will die for our beliefs." And none of them died, but they screeched a lot, and the Egyptians were treating them fairly well. I've seen Danish cops treat people much worse, such as hitting their shins with wooden batons when they don't get out of the way, when they're sitting in linked arms, so the Danish cops just went to town on their shins, and you take a wooden baton to the shin, you're going to get out of the way. It's agony. But this is the the Israeli war against Iran has unleashed a lot of insanity. Okay, as far as I could tell, the nationwide No Kings March against Trump was a bust. It looked like the cops pretty much everywhere let them march for a little while and then said, "All right, that's enough, go away." I saw Philadelphia police cops bashing the hell out of masked skinny dudes. I saw a great one in New York where this couple was following these cops, yelling, "Honor your oath, honor your oath, honor your oath." And the cop in the back, finally, he said, "Okay." And he turned around, he said, "You're going to jail." And then they immediately started saying, "I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing." And the camera went woogity, 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 and they went to jail. And, it's as brainless as thinking you can rush the Gaza border from Egypt and the Egyptians will stand aside and let you do it. I don't know. The mind boggles. There's nobody marching in the street protesting on behalf of the Iranian mullahs. Not even here. They don't know what to march for anymore. It's an embarrassment of riches for them. Are they going to march against the parade of the U.S. Army? Are they going to march against? The Israelis are sort of in the mopping up stage in Gaza. Gaza's done.
It's just calling it the janitors now.
So it's they keep playing these videos of weeping Palestinian children saying they're starving, and they're all chubby, they're all well fed.
Oh God, yeah, no. Whenever they come out to protest, they're all chubby, well fed. Now they're claiming Israelis, IDF was shooting pregnant women. Yeah,
Oh,
sure,
okay.
sure. They were also torturing dogs. Oh no, 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 no. That was the little yum from the NHS.
Wait, why were they shooting pregnant women? Just to be rats, just to be mean?
Yeah, apparently, we know they weren't doing it one way or another. But that tells you more about the erotic fantasies
Oh
of
yeah.
the complainer than the IDF. These
Well,
people are fucking sick.
this Welsh nutter. What was he thinking when he started talking about how a woman's breasts stink after they've run out of milk? Like, for one thing, that's not even true. But for another thing, what are you talking about? Like what's going on in your head? You've lost control of your thoughts, and you're so worked up emotionally that you're just spewing random thoughts. You're clutching at your weirdest fears and fantasies and mixing them all together. I don't know. It's
Pretty much like the Minnesota shooter.
yeah. I mean,
All of these guys, all of these deranged uh, people living in an alternative reality, do the same thing. They attribute to their perceived enemy all the evils of the world and everything perhaps that they would like to do and
yeah.
can't.
It's classic. It's like Holocaust deniers are all the people who actually want to wipe out the world's Jewish people. So
Yeah,
they're denying the very thing that they want more than anything else. And the Minnesota shooter is also vain. All his various available photos are 20 years old.
yes.
And
He's considerably more chubby and run down than
well,
the picture circulating there.
I saw a picture. Sorry, I saw a video on Twitter that somebody claimed was him, and as usual, it was like fourth generation video, and he was on stage screeching about abortion and homosexuality, and this guy's from Minnesota. He's not going to be mounting any stages. He's not going to be a Baptist minister. So, anyone who starts murdering politicians is crazy.
Absolutely. Delusional by definition.
Right. And
by the way, this senator and this congresswoman, they were essentially asked by the party to vote the way they did, and they didn't like it. And they came out in press conferences. The woman was almost on the verge of crying because, they told me I had to vote for this. I don't like it anymore. And the reason they were told to vote for this is because the Democrats had an agreement with the Republicans on a budget bill.
Yeah.
But in order to approve the budget bill, one of the conditions that the Republicans insisted upon was this bill that terminated free health care for illegals.
Right.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Now, if the bill of canceling free health care for illegals failed, the agreement went out the window and there was no budget. It was a good move on the part of the Republicans, and frankly, a good move on the part of the Democrats that seated a little one piece here, sacrificed a bishop, and got to move their queen.
Mm-hmm.
But these two were just doing their party duty, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's why it's only two of them, because that was all that was necessary to.
And
you can't say that they betrayed their party or their ideology. No, they acted as good soldiers too, whether you agree with them or not. And that adds a layer of tragedy to the farce.
Well, we don't even know the guy's motives. He left a manifesto, which is prima facie evidence that he's insane. Anyone who leaves manifestos is insane. But of course, the cops haven't commented on it. My guess is, and of course I could be wrong. My guess is if it was a raving right-wing manifesto, it would have been published by already. But who knows? Who knows? If the guy only registered as a Republican in 2022, that tells me that he was shifting all over the place. And
well, he's been an appointee of two successive Democrat administrations since at least 2019, including his current appointment by Timmy Nutless Waltz.
Right.
So, was he a Republican? Was he a Minnesota Republican? Was he a libertarian? Was he? Who gives a shit? He wasn't that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that going around. I saw a clip from one of the No Kings protests, and it was this sobbing 74-year-old woman who was just afraid of everything. She was just afraid of how everything was going in the country, and just terrified and terrified for the future and this, that, and the other. And it's like, you poor twit, you poor nitwit. You've let yourself be brainwashed by people who see you as a tool, as a useful moron. And here you are sobbing, out marching, and because you're terrified. And I have no sympathy for people like that, because all you have to do is like go outside your goddamn house and basically see the world, not through the eyes of what others are telling you, but through your own eyes. And you'll see that nothing is happening. There's literally no reason to be afraid. I wasn't afraid when Biden was in charge and Biden was wrecking everything in sight. I knew that at some point the tide would turn in the other direction. So I have no sympathy for old people who are sobbing and are just trembling and fearful. The older you get, the stronger you should get.
Yeah, I don't know if stronger is the word. The
Yes,
older you get, the more unfazed you get, the more difficult it is to get
yeah,
you off center.
yeah,
I never fear Biden. I don't fear the Democrats. They bore me to tears. I do pine for the lost opportunities, but fear? But what
no.
is that?
Well, okay. When Israel first attacked Iran, Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks was on the air live, and when she learned, she threw this dramatic fit and said that Israel is nothing but a liability to the United States, and
Mm,
that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. People had high hopes for Anna, that she was like starting to see the light, but when it comes to Israel, it's full of Jews, so of course it's going to be a liability. And this whole notion that Israel is at fault for attacking Iran because the Iranians have openly said they're going to wipe Israel off the map with nuclear weapons. And somehow Israel is wrong for getting rid of that threat. Um, Somehow Israel is wrong when Iran is the sponsor of Hamas and Hamas carried out October 7th. Somehow Israel is a liability to the United States when we use so much Israeli technology. Anna Kasparian herself has benefited from Israeli technology, Israeli advances in medicine, Israeli advances in communications. You know, so anybody who thinks Israel is nothing but a liability is an idiot. And you know, it stems from the fact that Israel is a Jewish state, and that's the only reason. Because there are massive wars happening right now in the African continent. Anna Kasparian never mentions them. Um,
mm.
but let Israel attack Iran of all states, and suddenly Israel is nothing but a liability to the United States. That's stupid. That's just a stupid, childish thing to say, and it is boring because you hear it all the time, and it's not something that a person of any real level of intelligence would ever say or even think.
Is your sound okay?
My sounds okay.
Oh, okay. No, sorry about that. I was getting rid of a troll. Um, Sorry, I had this thing. I can't put up with trolls. It's maybe uh, a personality fault of mine, but I don't see trolling as a healthy activity, and I do not tolerate him in our feeds. This guy I had already banned once. He came crawling on his knees, begging to be let back in, and I made the mistake that I sometimes do of giving the guy a second chance. Maybe I was mistaken. I wasn't. He's a troll. Goodbye. Maybe an alcohol-induced troll.
Well,
So my apologies.
that's what I was saying earlier, that Israel's attack on Iran has unleashed mental illness all over the planet.
Yes, and in my case, it gave me a little bit of peace of mind. It's like, yes, the world is still going in the right direction. Let's talk about that for a second, because it's not yet time to celebrate. I will celebrate when the Islamic Republic is no more. In the meantime, I'm hopeful. I see good things being done, but it's not done yet. Let's not jump to that conclusion. It's going to be difficult. A missile just dropped in a city in Israel, and it demolished a residential building. An 80-year-old girl died, among others. Um,
Uh, a missile hit an Arab town, and an entire family of 5 Israeli
yes,
Arabs were killed.
yes, I count them as Israelis, but
Yeah,
I'm glad that you point out Israeli Arabs, because people forget. When some idiots in the left, oh, we hope for a country in the Middle East where Jews and Arabs and Christians can live together in happiness. That's Israel, you fucking
yeah, they
idiots.
already do it.
They're already doing it, and they're doing it very well. So it is, if you want, somewhat ironic that the first, well, no, the first victim was a woman in Tel Aviv who died of wounds when a piece of a missile fell on her. But that the Islamic Republic is killing Muslims in the Israeli countryside has a tinge of the ironic. But I don't want to go there because these are tragedies. These are tragedies that could have been avoided.
Well,
You see,
these
the
are
problem.
atrocities. The
Yes,
Iranians are deliberately aiming at civilians, and the Israelis are not. The Israelis have decapitated the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to the point that they're deserting, and the Iranians have issued orders that any IRGC member who deserts is going to be considered a traitor and shot on
um,
sight, which means it's
but
obviously a problem.
unless they are of sufficient rank, because while the airports are closed, a shit ton of aircraft has been leaving Tehran in the direction of Moscow, carrying
Also,
government officials and generals with them.
those are IRGC airliners. They're
Yes,
attached to the IRGC. They are
yes,
property of the IRGC. So it's clear that the Islamic revolutionary leadership of Iran is
it's getting the
fleeing.
fuck out of Dodge.
Yep.
Mm. So we know that. They had about 1,000 missiles ready to shoot. The Israelis destroyed the launch sites of a crapload of them. So they ended up firing 100 yesterday and just about 150 today, um, which is rather manageable. But still, every now and then, either parts of an exploded missile or drone, or one that gets through, it does
Well,
happen. No system is 100% fail safe.
the thing about interceptors, the rocket interceptors that the Israelis fire, is that they destroy the uh, um, the propellant of the missile. So the
So
warhead,
the whole thing falls.
well, the warhead will often detach and hit the ground and explode. So I've seen several videos where an intercepted ballistic missile, the warhead continues and it hits the ground and explodes. As of yet, the Iranians have not hit any targets of significance, military or economic significance in Israel. Um, People are putting up. There's a list you can find on Twitter of all the misleading video that's being posted. Much of it is from 2024, the Iranian attacks in 24, and the what's happening now, Iran is facing the same problem that Hezbollah did. We were told that Hezbollah had 250,000 missiles. They didn't have 250,000 launchers, and every time they did launch, the Israelis would locate that launcher and destroy it.
Yep.
And the same thing's happening in Iran.
And considering the Israeli Air Force can do whatever the crap it wants in northwestern Iran all the way to Tehran,
Yep.
and there is absolutely nothing the Iranians can do but watch.
Well, this nonsense about how the Iranians had scrambled their MiG-29s. A MiG-29 going up against an F-35. I mean, holy shit! Talk about suicide.
I understand that they scrambled a couple just to fly them to China.
Well,
there is no Air Force in Iran.
The Iranians are doing something really stupid, which is they're pretending. They're putting out all this propaganda that's not serving them any purpose. They're lying. They're pretending. They claim they shot down 2 Israeli jets and captured a female Israeli pilot, and they showed a Chilean naval pilot, a woman, complete with a patch that said Chilean Navy on it, and that was repeated. But of course,
and we've seen some ridiculous AI created images,
yeah.
video game images of taking down an F-35. My favorite is a diagram of a Tel Aviv building with a submarine in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what the crap good is a submarine in the basement of a building, but the submarine is not a submarine at all. It's a Star Trek ship. I mean, these people are beyond stupid. Whatever else we say about them, they are incredibly stupid and primitive.
Well, okay, back to Iran as an American problem. I have a page here. It's the FBI counterintelligence page called the Iran Threat. And this is just a list of some of the things the Iranians have done. Let's see. 3 Iranian nationals charged with computer intrusions and ransomware extortion against U.S. infrastructure.
Can you send me the link via message and I'll put it on screen?
Yeah.
While you talk about it?
Let's see. Should I email it?
No. Just a message within this, or if it's easier for you, you can WhatsApp it or whatever you want to do.
Let's see.
But you have a private chat to the right of the screen.
Oh, private chat. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Emery said in the chat it was a Star Wars Imperial Star Destroyer. It's,
perfect. Yeah.
It's insane.
A member of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps charged with plot to murder the former national security advisor. Okay.
Yep.
That's the IRGC is directly connected to the Iranian government. Iran at center of cyber crime charges in 3 cases. Let's see. IRGC member sentenced to 25 years for conspiring to assassinate the Saudi ambassador and several U.S. senators. So this is just
the ransomware. The least that I did at the monologue was not all inclusive because we'd be talking for 3 hours.
Yeah. No, by simply support by making the Houthis block the Red Sea, that impacts our economy dramatically.
It did.
Yep.
It did. It gave us a couple of extra points in inflation.
Yep.
It again upset all of the supply lines, not just in the U.S., but I'm particularly concerned with the U.S. Uh, and it is a chronic of a catastrophe foretold. We knew they could do that. We knew they could try to do it in Hormuz. And Biden didn't do anything.
No.
It
In 19
actually facilitated the money so that they could finance this shit.
in 1988, the Iranians started targeting oil tankers going through the Straits of Hormuz. So
Yes.
we had to destroy the entire Iranian Navy to make them stop. And we did it in one afternoon.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan didn't mince around with Iran.
No. And so this notion that I've seen this all over Twitter, this war has nothing to do with us and we need to stay out of it. But see, people are talking about American boots on the ground in Iran. Why the fuck would we ever do that? There's no need. There's no need. And that would be the best possible way to alienate the Iranian people.
There's not going to be Israeli boots on the ground, except insofar as special operators may be needed to make sure that certain nuclear facilities go poof in the night.
Well,
I'm sure that we're going to use a B-2 with a Moab or 2 or 3.
Well, okay, that's interesting. I've been looking into whether or not the Israelis need us to help them. They're saying they do, but they also Trump also said that he was doing everything in his power to stop the what they say and what's actually happening oftentimes bear no connection. We have something called a massive ordnance penetrator, which is a 30,000 pound bunker buster. And yep. And it's good, but it's got a problem in that the fuse cannot be set. The fuse will only blow up when the thing stops moving through the ground. And the Israelis have a 5,000 pound bunker buster called the GBU 28. And the GBU 28 is interesting because we designed it, tested it, and put it into production in 3 weeks. So that was in 1991. So if we were able to create a 5,000 pound bunker buster in 3 weeks in 1991, imagine what the Israelis really have up their sleeve. What's very likely is that the Israelis have something called the next generation penetrator, which is rocket powered. So it works not so much with explosive power, but with kinetic energy. So if you start firing hypersonic, hardened munitions at Fordo, for example, the kinetic shock waves that go through that are going to demolish the entire structure. They're going to cause cave-ins and everything. Fordo is around 80 meters under mountain rock.
Under rock, yeah.
And the thing about mountain rock is that it's very unstable. You've seen avalanches all the time. So the way the Israelis killed Nasrallah was they dropped 81
or 82
2,000 pound bunker busters basically on the same spot. And with each strike, the next one would go a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. So there were cave-ins, there was explosive damage, there was blunt force trauma, and then suffocation. And apparently, according to the Lebanese at least, Nasrallah died of suffocation. I've also heard that he was smashed flatter than a pancake, so who knows. But
Well, he died of suffocation, but they had to pick him up with a spatula.
Yeah, and I would guess that the Israeli request for the Americans to bomb Fordo, for example, I would guess that that's this. It's what's the term that musicians, not distraction, but um, when a magician is doing a trick and he makes you look over here while he's doing something over there. My guess is that the Israelis probably have next generation penetrators that are hypersonic, and that if you have a 5,000 pound hypersonic munition and you drop a series of those on Fordo, you're going to destroy it. I think I've seen they did strike Fordo already, and what was interesting
Yes.
is that the black smoke coming up was like coming up almost in columns, as if it was coming out of holes in the ground. So,
And they also got Isfahan and Natanz.
yep.
In Natanz, they destroyed the top floors,
Mhm.
the first basement. But in doing so, they destroyed all of the electrical units, the generators, and all that jazz. And an interesting thing happens when the electricity is cut off to 30,000 centrifuges.
Say it again.
An interesting thing happens when you cut off electricity to centrifuges going at, I don't know, 40,000 RPMs. They get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So the estimation of some people know more than I do is that while Israel has not yet destroyed the fourth, fifth, sixth basements in Natanz, the centrifuges inside are already worthless. And the same thing it could have happened in Fordo. In any case, like I said, and I know you agree, if all else fails, they're going to send special operators. They're not going to
Yeah.
send an army. They're not going to send 100,000 troops to take over, traffic policing in Tehran. But they will, if need be, send special operators. Uh, we already have uh, soldiers in Jordan, in Syria, in Israel. One American base was attacked in Iraq yesterday. Uh, so, yeah, there are American soldiers in harm's way. Oh my God, what a novel concept. There are also American uh, personnel operating the THAAD anti-air batteries in and around Israel.
Mhm.
So we are definitely participating to a degree. I don't care what people say.
No, and in case people haven't heard, the Israelis sent Mossad into Iran in November of 24 at the absolute latest, and they essentially built a drone factory, and then they infiltrated into Iran. So they were very close to several of the anti-aircraft batteries, and they're called TELs. A TEL is a launcher for a ballistic missile. It's a truck, and it carries the ballistic missile horizontally, and then when it's ready to launch, it raises the missile vertically and it launches. And so the Mossad destroyed an absolute crap load of TELs and anti-aircraft batteries. And the Mossad is also in Tehran tracking down high-ranking members of the Islamic Revolutionary government and targeting them for assassination, including the Grand Ayatollah.
Yep.
So Um,
Make him meet his 72 goats as soon as possible.
and for this reason, the Israelis may not need to completely destroy all the underground facilities. It could be that the Islamic Revolutionary Government will be gone, and then the people of
They'll do it
Iran
together. Yeah.
take care of it. We don't want it. We don't want any problems.
Yeah, and then we'll do it together. We're going to
Yep.
be invited by the new Iranian government to assist. The other thing is, you just mentioned the head of the Quds force was a Mossad agent.
Mm,
And when Israel infiltrated Iran with the Mossad to create a drone factory
mm,
from whence they actually shot a number of missile launchers, it, the Iranians smelled the rat, so they created a special task force to chase Mossad agents.
mm.
And the task force was headed by a Mossad agent and made out of 20 Mossad agents who are now back home, I presume, celebrating the success of their mission. This is, it is impossible to overpraise an operation like this.
And this is just one in a long line. Remember, the Israelis smuggled out 1.5 tons of paper and um, what do you call it, DVDs and
Yep.
physical information on the Iranian nuclear program, and these were kept in hundreds of safes in one building, and the Israelis drilled open each safe and brought all this stuff out. So they have a long history of doing
There's a
that.
lot, yes. And I would have to think that in Iran, one of every five citizens is a Mossad agent at this point.
Well, sure. The For a long time, it was claimed that the Quds Force was the best special operations unit in the world, and I used to scoff at that because there was no evidence of it. The Quds Force had never actually fought an armed
Anyway,
opponent. It planted bombs, it murdered civilians, it carried out acts of terrorism, but it wasn't a special operations unit. The best you could call them would be terrorist saboteurs. And when they went to Syria, they came back in boxes. So then they sent the IRGC. They came back in boxes. Then they sent the Besiege, who are the paramilitary goons who split people's skulls, and they came back in boxes. Hezbollah was sent; they came back in boxes. It's nobody expected Syria to fall as fast, or to fall, period, but to fall as fast as it did. And Israel's attacks began when? 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
yeah, 3 days ago.
Yeah. So, we don't know what's going to happen, but things are looking very dire for the mullahs.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and everybody says, well, the Trump is here, or Trump is there, or said this, or say that, or negotiations, or he remains aloof. Trump said three things in the past 3 days. The first one was, I gave Iran 60 days to reach a deal, and they didn't, and today is 61. It's going to be painful. Then he said, Iran can still come to the table and have a negotiation because what's coming is even more painful. Now, you say, what's the point of Iran coming to a negotiation now? Surrender.
Exactly.
The point is, Iran says, "Uncle," comes on Sunday to a negotiation in Qatar and said, "Okay, okay, we just stop. These here are the keys to the nuclear facilities. Go and destroy them yourself." They can do that. They're not going to.
No.
But Trump is correct when he keeps the door open. If they want to come over here, and remember, no enrichment, no nuclear facilities, no nothing, and we can have a deal. Why wouldn't he do that? I don't understand people who criticize him for it.
Well, okay, the people who criticize Trump for everything. They're always going to criticize Trump. They're like somebody whose answer to every single question is 25. Like their opinions don't matter because they always have the same answer. And what Trump is doing, I mean, okay, for some reason on the night that all the bombing started, everyone started talking about Lindsey Graham as if Lindsey Graham has the power to send American troops. And it's like, why are you talking about Lindsey Graham? Like Lindsey Graham doesn't matter.
They accused Lindsey Graham of ordering the bombing of Russian Air Force bases because he happened to be in Ukraine the day before Ukraine sent the drones. These people are mentally ill.
Yeah. And then the day the bombing started, they started talking about, we shouldn't have American boots on the ground in Iran. And it's like, you poor people, you don't understand that Iran isn't Iraq.
And Iraq would have been a different story without Obama, let's face it.
Yeah. No, for us to occupy Iran would require something on the order of at least 1 million troops on the ground, which is not going to happen. And
how many years have we been saying, Thomas, we don't need to invade Iran. Just bomb the naval facilities, bomb the Revolutionary Guard bases and administration buildings, erase whatever passes for an air force in that poor country, and leave the mullahs without the resources to continue to oppress their people. And then let the people of Iran do whatever crap they want to do. They want to have the son of the Shah back, Mazel Tov. They want to have a communist government with the MEK at the head. It's your fucking problem. If you want to go from the Islamic Republic to the communist dictatorship, you're a fucking moron. But hey, there's no cure for stupidity. But it's their problem. In any case, they won't be a threat to us anymore.
The thing about the period we're living in is that massive changes are happening, massive and critical changes are happening, and this is the period. We're experiencing the worst quality mainstream media in history. You would have to go back to the era of woodcuts and religious maniacs putting out utterly libelous. Libel is written and slander is spoken. Is that how it works, or is it the other way around? I think slander is spoken.
I use both written or spoken, depending on the nature of the statement. But
when back in the day when
Jefferson would pay an Italian writer to launch broadsides describing John Adams as a sexual deviant.
Well, as a hermaphrodite. He called him a hermaphrodite. So,
or the Adams campaign started the canard about Jefferson shacking up with his slaves.
Yeah. No, and today the press was crying about the parade for the army, which the organization of which began during the Biden administration. It's not a Trump idea. It was a nationwide idea. It's a federal government idea. It was an army idea, and these people weeping about how men in uniform and salutes is fascist, and it's like, tell that to all these young Americans who are keeping your ass out of whatever Chinese gulag you would end up in.
Tell it to the men in uniform who defeated the Nazis, asshole.
Well, exactly. Who were the majority of whom were draftees. It was a draftee civilian army in World War II.
18-year-old boys. I mean, you look at the pictures of some of the soldiers in Normandy.
Yep.
And it's like kids.
Well,
and those kids in uniform are the ones who stopped Hitler.
Yeah. No,
the real one.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous, and it's failing. The left is doing what we always said they do. They're going even further to the left. They're maniacal now.
But by the way, I get from Father Chris a comment on libel slander. He says, libel is published, I think. I base all my legal opinions on Rumpole. Remember Rumpole of the Bailey?
Yes.
Yeah. And
slander is
a little bit of the local plunk. There's Big man who knows damn all about libel. Yeah. And of course, I remember slanderous remarks. So you may be right. I never made the distinction, but I'm not a lawyer either. So,
well, this should be you hear people all the time who say that they're not biased, they're not politically biased, and then they spew out their utterly worthless analysis of say the Israeli-Iran war, and it's amazing how people. What I've learned, okay, my brother told me that what he learned during the Biden administration was that insanity is contagious. And what I learned is that, one, it's horribly easy to brainwash people, and two, all brainwashers eventually end up brainwashing themselves. So
they end up believing their own bullshit.
They really do. And when it's at the bottom of the barrel level that it's at now, with AI images of Gaza looking worse than Hamburg at the end of World War II, or Gaza with building fires, like hundreds of building fires, as if the Israelis had targeted hundreds of buildings in one strike.
I saw one today of the total destruction of Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv.
Oh,
except it didn't look anything like Ben Gurion Airport.
Yeah, I saw one of Tel Aviv wiped off the map, and it showed cars passing rubble, and the cars were merging into one and then merging out again. So it was like, or aircraft with the wings on backwards, like wrecked F-16s lying on the runway, and their wings were on backwards because the AI got it wrong.
Yeah, because by the way, they're using AI, but the people doing it are not very well trained.
It's really funny you mentioned that. I saw a news article that said that Google, if you ask it any question, it now has what's called an AI overview, and it said that so many people are reading the AI overview that it's putting websites, they're not getting any traffic. I never read the AI overview because it's always wrong.
It's always wrong, and sometimes the first one or two paragraphs are exactly what's in the first one or two websites recommended,
Exactly.
which are not necessarily all that hard. You have to go
Yeah.
deeper. You have to dig deeper. I ignore the AI overview.
Yeah.
A lot of people in X are asking Grok for verification or whatever, and taking whatever inanity comes out of that garbage in, garbage out system as gospel.
Well, this is the
And
thing.
90% of it is wrong.
Also, AI, the Google AI overview, if it doesn't understand your question, it'll answer a different question. So in my case, I was looking for information on Germany during the Weimar Republic, which was 1918 to 1933, and it was giving me information on the Hitler government. And that wasn't what I was asking it. And the reason it was doing that was because there's a relatively small amount of information. I was specifically asking it about the German army, which is known as the Reichswehr. The Reichswehr during the Weimar Republic, there's relatively little published information as compared to the Reichswehr under Hitler. And so it completely ignored the Weimar Republic and started telling me about Hitler. And it's like, you're useless. You're stupid. You're wasting my time.
Totally. Totally useless. So I just bypass it, just like you do. Father Chris says I corrected Grok today. Well, you waste your time any way you want, Father. I'm not going to be the one telling you how to waste your time. The good thing about Father Chris today is if he doesn't stop, I'm going to start cracking up because he's quoting Rumble of the Bailey. And there is a level of sarcasm in Rumble that I believe has been unsurpassed by any other storytelling out there. Uh, the, it, I know you're going to enjoy this, but Rumble and the Bubble Reputation has a tabloid being sued for libel after publishing prurient rumors about a famous author, Miss Amelia Nettleship. And somebody asked about one of the books of Amelia Nettleship. Is that the one that ends happily? And Rumple responds, happily, all Miss Nettleship's books come to an end eventually. That's the kind of thing I love it.
Well, if you really want to delve into the most bitterly sarcastic, even cynical publication ever, it's online. It's called The Devil's Dictionary by Ambrose Bierce.
Oh, yes.
Ambrose Bierce has a bad word to say about everyone and everything. So, but it's funny. It is. It's funny cynicism. So he was even more sour than H.L. Mencken, which is saying a lot.
Well, God, yes. But you're correct, because I do have actually a copy of the Devil's Dictionary here. And I remember that not the whole thing, because some are not better than others, but some of them had me rolling on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely merciless. So it appeals to my lower instincts.
Well, what's interesting is that nobody has ever had a good word to say about the press. And it isn't because the press is comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. It's because the press is full of liars, and it's always been full of liars.
Always been.
Especially now that we have accountability journalism, where the journalists are told that they need to have a villain in every one of their articles. If you're writing about the Israeli-Iran war, of course,
one of them has to be a villain.
and you're going to say Israel is a villain. The Iranians were just minding their own business, and out of the blue, Israel attacked them out of bloodthirstiness. And you know, um, yeah, I mean, an IRGC member tried to assassinate American senators during the Obama years, in the year 2011, and we made them pay nothing. Instead, we went ahead and made the nuclear. What was it called? The framework. It wasn't a deal. It wasn't a treaty. It was a framework.
It was a framework because you cannot call it a treaty because the Senate didn't fucking approve it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a framework.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Absolutely nothing. What is it? A waste of time.
It means we agreed to give them billions of dollars, and we would turn aside when they started working on their bombs again.
Yes. Oh God, we have such a well-read audience. Terry saying, "Try the literary offenses of Fenimore Cooper" by Mark Twain. Another one. And Mark Twain had such a sense of humor that you find maybe one or two guys like that per generation. Um, a lot of our folks there are saying that this is the death of the press. No, it isn't. The press has been justifiably condemned every year, every decade for the past 200 years. Back in the 1500s, people were complaining about the scribes. The yellow journalism comes to us from the Hearst publications.
Yeah,
How many years ago?
They started a war.
Yes. So, is it the end? No, it's going to be the same shit. Every now and then, every blue fucking moon, if also you happen to be a Pope's death and a meteor strikes the moon, you're going to have a journalist worth reading. Somebody like Charles Krauthammer or William Safire. Notice every 20 years you have one, like clockwork. And then when that one dies, it takes us about 10 to 20 years to find a replacement.
Well,
but they are there.
People were saying that citizen journalists were going to replace the mainstream journalism, but what's happening is that citizen journalists are being co-opted, and they end up being just as corrupt as the mainstream. They start writing clickbait articles, and they give them clickbait headlines, and
it's worse than CNN. I mean, I'm really sick and tired of these people.
Well, they're
grifters.
You see headlines, and it shows a face, and it has a quote in quotation marks. I know now that person. If I bother to read or listen to the video, I'll learn that person never said such a thing.
Yeah.
And it used to be, okay, when Kennedy was assassinated, we had what, 3 channels? ABC, NBC, and CBS, 3 news channels.
Mm-hmm. In New York, we had 4. And PBS.
At PBS.
Yeah, because it was those 3 plus an independent station, Channel 11, and then PBS, and that was it.
Well, okay, I'm gonna divert from what I was about to say, and I'm gonna change subjects really quick. I saw something today about the Black Dahlia, the young woman who was murdered in Los Angeles in 1947. And I've been hearing this. The Black Dahlia's body was bisected. And I've been hearing for years now that this was a medical procedure called a hemicorpectomy, and that only a surgeon of great skill was able to perform a hemicorpectomy. And the Black Dahlia had a hemicorpectomy. performed on her. Everybody says this now. I looked it up. She was murdered in 1947. The hemicorpectomy was first proposed by a surgeon in 1950.
Right.
And the first hemicorpectomy was performed in 1960.
Oh, it was a very precautious surgeon that did this to the Black Dahlia, wasn't
Well,
it?
this is the thing. It wasn't a hemicorpectomy. It was a murderer. It was a madman. It wasn't a careful surgical procedure. And the video I was listening to, the narrator said that the police went and they interviewed the handful of surgeons who were trained in hemicorpectomies. There were none in 1947. The procedure had not been proposed until 1950. Since the hemicorpectomy was first proposed in 1950 and first performed in 1960, there have been 67 hemicorpectomies performed worldwide since 1960.
Right.
Whoever murdered the Black Dahlia had no surgical knowledge whatsoever. It's a lie.
Or was a time traveler.
Or was a time traveler.
Because you're going to find websites speculating on that shit.
Of course. So I looked into it because I've heard this for a long time. I always had my doubts, but I wasn't interested enough to look into it. Tonight I looked into it, and it took me 10 seconds to find out that the procedure was completely unknown in 1947. So everybody making the claim that it was a surgeon who committed the murder is wrong. They're idiots. They're repeating what somebody else.
Everybody's idiots. Some of our both citizen journalists and journalistic institutions, both today, were reporting that Iran was bombing the capital of Israel,
which they said was
Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And one went as far as to say that a missile has struck the American embassy in Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be a fucking miracle since the American embassy happens to be in the capital of Israel. Jerusalem, you fucking idiots.
Well, the American embassy is gigantic and it stretches from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. So
yes.
They hit the end of it. That's in Tel
Can
Aviv.
you imagine if you try to go to the bathroom, you're going to pee yourself on the way there? And somebody actually answered me, well, it is confusing because, no, it's not confusing. Either you know it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are not brain dead and you pretend to be interested in world affairs, you remember when President Trump ordered the move of the American embassy to Jerusalem in 2018.
It was controversial.
It was very controversial, even though every president since I think Nixon had been promising to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and nobody did. Trump had the audacity to be the first president in 40 years to actually fucking do it.
Right. Remember how everyone said it was the end of the world and then moved on to the next hysteria?
Oh, the Arab world is going to explode. The Arab world didn't even fart it.
Well, I watched a video about the submarine, the Titan, that imploded on its trip down to the Titanic. And it only made, I think it made 9 trips to the Titanic in total, even though they had to replace the hull once. The entire hull was replaced. And that new hull was the one that imploded. It imploded on its first dive to the Titanic. But they're interviewing a CBS correspondent who rode in the submarine down to the Titanic, listening to what sounds like machine gun fire as the hull is cracking under the pressure. And they asked this guy, weren't you afraid? He said, oh, no. And they said, why weren't you afraid? He said, well, because they told me not to worry, that they knew what they were doing. This is a reporter. This is a guy in late middle age. And he did no research before he went down in this death trap. He did no research. He did not know that the hull was advertised as being 5 inches thick of carbon fiber. It wasn't. It was 5 1-inch layers that were piled on top of each other with empty space in between all of them. So the thing was it was going to implode at some point.
It was going to implode one way or another.
This reporter reported everything that Stockton Rush, the CEO of the company, told him to report. And that was how he did his job. He was a stenographer. And that is what too many journalists, so-called, are and always have been. They've been stenographers. And I think about all the cases. Remember, there was a reporter named Cook, and she did a story about an 8-year-old heroin addict named Jimmy. And her big story was called Jimmy's World. She made it all up.
She made it all up.
Jimmy didn't exist.
How about my favorite punching ball, Gerardo Rivera?
Yeah.
And if anybody thinks about the Al Capone safe, which was, of course, let me see, what is the right word for it? Bullshit. What he did with the home for retarded children is even worse.
Sure.
Because it was his bullshit, his invention of a story that didn't exist, that eventually led to the closing of this facility and throwing over 4,000 kids with intellectual development problems onto the streets.
Yeah.
That is a fucking crime.
Yeah.
And he was guilty of it because of his yellow journalism brand.
Mm-hmm. No,
Willowbrook, says Deb, who remembers everything. Deb, by the way, either has the fastest fingers on the internet or she has a prodigious memory. Because whatever we talk about, she always knows. Willowbrook, yes, you're absolutely correct.
It's the need. Okay, Stockton Rush, the guy, the CEO of I can't even remember the name of the company. The company that made the Titan. He was
the Titanic or the Titan. The Titan.
The company that made the submarine.
The Titan. Okay.
Stockton Rush was obsessed with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. He wanted to be Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos had conquered space, and he wanted to conquer the deep sea. And he consistently referred to those two men as big swinging dicks. And he said in his own words he wanted to be a big swinging dick. And he wanted fame, and he wanted adoration and applause and all of that. And he was going to do anything to get it. And he died, and he took 4 other people with him. But I was just shocked at how little. There was one guy, the original driver of the submarine, became a whistleblower, and he pointed out every single safety issue with this submarine. And no one would give him the time of the day. Nobody would write about it. They were too busy praising Stockton Rush, and they just ignored this guy. And then when the submarine imploded, they all flocked to him and said, "Oh my God, look, he was telling this all the time, and for some reason we ignored him." It's like, of course you ignored him. You did that, just like you pretended that Joe Biden didn't have dementia, and now you're pointing the finger at other people like Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper wrote a book about it. Oh my God, how could this happen? How could the press
You,
pretend
you,
that?
you, you really think that the potato could write a book?
Well, I mean, he's got a co-author, meaning he dictated a couple of ideas to this guy, and the guy wrote the book, and that was it.
To total invention. The son of a bitch couldn't write a book to save his life. And what he writes in it bears no resemblance to the actual story. And that is going by memory. If you actually start researching it, you can destroy the asshole.
I'm not interested in anything Jake Tapper has to write because he was, he says the press, this is an indictment of the press. And then you just see all the videos of him saying Biden's fine. He's smarter than he's ever been. He's healthier than he's ever been. He lifts weights, goes jogging. He does crossword puzzles. And we would be, meanwhile, watching videos of Biden walking across the stage and pausing in the middle to like bend his knees and go, "Eh." And it was like, oh, okay, I know what he just did. No, that was a terrible era, and the press was entirely complicit. And look what happened to the world. Look what the press allowed to happen in the world. It's amazing. But if the mainstream press dies, then eventually the citizen press will become just as corrupt and apt to write what they're told to write, et cetera, et cetera. You see it. Some of the videos with the most views are these weird ass conspiracy theories about how the Israelis and the Israelis are attacking Iran so that the U.S. will send troops to die, and then this will allow Greater Israel, or it'll allow the Israelis to take over our government because there'll be no army.
We better start practicing our Hebrew now before it's too late. They cannot be that stupid, Thomas. They can't. There's got to be something else. By the way, could you please check your direct message and act accordingly? Thank you. Discovery Warner is spinning off the cable channels just like Comcast is doing with MSNBC, and they are tired of losing money. And when Discovery bought CNN from AT&T, promising to improve the network, they didn't. It's worse than it's ever been. It's worse than it's ever been, and it's bleeding money.
Mm.
The network, they didn't. It's worse than it. Is that me?
Hold on.
And yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and CNN is bleeding money by the bucketful. So yeah, of course they have to get rid of all of this shit. They're money losing operations. MSLSD is a money pit. Nobody's making money there except maybe Rachel Madcow. Um, so anyway, oh yeah, Tapper chastised. I thank you, Deb. I had almost forgotten that shit. Tapper chastised Lara Trump, accusing her of making fun of Biden's stutter, because Biden had a stutter since he was a kid. Now I remember Biden in Congress. He was brainless, but he never had a stutter. Are most of the No Kings protesters done? Well, as long as there is money around from Acorn, I'm sorry, SEIU, or Organizing for America, or Chirla, they're going to be there. But that money is going to run out. Tapper's desperately trying to join the band, and he's pretending he's always been in the middle. Yes, that's what he's doing, but nobody buys it. He was a racist. I bet beg to differ, boat guy. He is a racist. Um, I like this one, Thomas. MS-13 NBC.
Mm-hmm.
That one kind of hits him where it hurts. Oh, oh boy. So anyway, sorry I had to ask you for a favor in the middle,
It's all right.
but it's not. It doesn't bother me at all, but it makes it, let's say, unpleasant for everybody else trying to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Tapper dated Monica Lewinsky, not a good judge of character. Well, a guy with no talent of his own, he wanted to brag that he put his weenie in the same place as Clinton.
He really dated Monica Lewinsky?
I don't know, by the way. I'm assuming it might be.
Wow.
Seen that viral video where he argues that his IQ is higher than the reporter? Yes, I remember that, and I'm still laughing my ass off. Um,
Oh, well, okay.
this, yeah,
The, the press, I've read that the press and politics, both sides get their mates from the other side. That's where the majority of their mates come from. So people in the press are dating people in the political world and vice versa. And it's like, okay, you told us that you're the watchdog protecting us against the overreaching government, but you're marrying them and bedding them and taking them out to dinner and doing all of that. So which is it? I don't know. I never had a desire to be a journalist. Not not in the sense of being a newspaper journalist or anything like that. Um, and even on Twitter, I had my fill of talking about the wars that were happening in 2014 and 15 and 16. Just the sheer amount of I mean, never mind the rage and the death threats and all of that, but just the people who are nominally on my side, just being like utterly vicious and full of rage that you dare to say this or dare to say that. You couldn't. Well, okay. On April 20th, 2015, the missile depot at Fajatan in Yemen exploded. And whatever caused the explosion, it was a hypersonic munition that essentially used kinetic energy to detonate all the warheads inside. And Yemen, the Houthis actually admitted that was a new weapon that was being used in Yemen, and they accused Israel. And at the time, I remember saying, I have no idea who did this, but it created this shockwave that was like it was knocking people over from 5 miles away. And I remember like writing about that, and just the blowback I got from people initially was shocking. And then like months later, they'd all picked up what I was saying and were repeating it like good little parrots. All the same people who told me I was insane, now they were saying it, and it was really strange. But if it was the Israelis, they'll obviously use munitions like that in Iran if they're not already using them.
Oh,
Um,
God, we're going to find out what they're using today. We know a few things, but not everything. They carried out over 200 sorties, or rather, not 200 sorties, 200 planes, hitting over 100 targets.
mhm,
And that was the first day.
mhm,
It hasn't let down. They are hitting everything under the sun. But notice they're hitting, of course, military targets.
mhm.
That fucking moron, that obnoxious, unbearable Brit. Um, I always have problem with his name. Maybe because I don't want to remember him. He's such an arrogant little prick. Um,
What does he do?
um, Pseudo journalist. Piers Morgan, says Father Chris,
Hmm.
because obviously I think I just described Piers Morgan all too well. Piers Morgan comes out, uh, Israel is hitting only military targets. That's why the casualties are low. If they only had done that in Gaza, a lot of people would not have been so upset. Is this son of a bitch for real?
Well, he doesn't know anything. He. I mean, okay, he's probably heard he's probably heard the truth, but he will not accept it because it goes against his own internal narrative. When it comes to
Oh,
Gaza,
he's heard the truth.
right? So, but when it comes to Gaza, he's irrational. He has to believe in genocide and all that shit because it's part of his identity. He's no different
Yes, it
than
is. When you say if he had heard the truth, he interviewed Douglas Murray a number of times. Douglas Murray has explained to him in painful detail every aspect of the war in Gaza. If he doesn't know it by now, it's because he doesn't want to. If he wants to ignore the fact that Hamas operates from under hospitals and kindergartners, that they use the population as shields, one thing that I can say of the mullahs, for all their depravity, is that they're not using the population as shields. Military installations are military installations.
well.
Government
Okay,
buildings are government buildings. They're not hiding under a school.
well, here's the difference between Gaza and Iran. The mullahs are afraid of their own people, so their military higher ranked staff live in apartment blocks that are absolutely separate from the local populations. In Gaza, all of Gaza is militarized. Gazans are handing out candy and celebrating the Iranian missile attacks against Israel right now.
Yeah.
Um,
And the Iranians are celebrating Israel missile hits, bomb hits in Iran.
exactly. Gaza is entirely militarized. The population is entirely militarized. You can make an argument that the entire population is 100% combatants because Hamas uses combatants all the way down to the age of 5. And Hamas also has a policy of involuntary martyrhood for children, which is approved of by the child, the dead child's parents. So the entire population is militarized, and occasionally Hamas kills civilians because they say, I want more butter on my bread, and so I'm going to go out and shake my fist in the air, and then Hamas kills them. But they don't really hold Hamas responsible for that. It's just all part of life in Gaza. Life is cheap in Gaza. Life isn't cheap for Iranians, not the non-mullahs. The mullahs and their their fat staffers, life is cheap for them. But for everybody else, I saw a party where they all had drinks and they were all dancing as they were up in an apartment building watching the bombs blowing up. And that doesn't happen in Gaza because the population is Hamas.
Yes.
They love Hamas in exactly the way a beaten spouse loves their spouse. The spouse, I've seen police videos where the spouse, male or female, has a bloody face and they're begging the cops not to take their beater, their abuser to prison. And Gazans are the same way. They let Hamas puts tunnels and weapons depots and everything inside their houses, and they're fine with it. It's how life is done in Gaza. The entire population is militarized, which is why and also Pierce Morgan is he is deliberately taking Hamas's casualty figures as gospel.
Yes. And he knows better, but he still does it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the guy's bad knows. By the way, speaking of enemies, Angel here is supporting us in one of the streams, and he has a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether to answer it myself or let you do it. But being kind, he's a supporter. I'm just sick of funding other countries' wars. Enough already. Who is really the enemy at this point?
Well,
I think we just spoke for an hour about that.
yeah, I mean, Iran is the enemy. The Israelis don't attack us. They don't murder American citizens. They don't carry out bombing.
They don't try to assassinate our president.
Also, the Israelis give us technology that we haven't developed ourselves, including medical technology. It was the Israelis who developed the level of what the hell is the surgery called? The where they cut a tiny hole in you and put some claw into you, and instead of slicing you open down the middle, they just cut little holes in you.
Oh, laparectomy or
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there are several
laparoscopic surgery.
laparoscopic surgery.
The Israelis are the ones who perfected laparoscopic surgery. It's the Israelis invented bandages that cause blood clotting, that seal wounds. The Israelis invent technology in all fields that they share with us, and they give us intelligence that we don't have from other people. We give them satellite information, but they give us human intelligence because we're too stupid. The CIA stopped using human intelligence decades ago because they said that all we need is signals intelligence. And of course, that's ridiculous, but it's never been changed. So the Israelis, of course, believe in human intelligence, and so they give us information that we wouldn't get otherwise about the Middle East. One country begins and ends every parliamentary session with "Death to America." So
Yes.
I don't think it's hard to figure out who the enemies are.
No. And I'm going to make it even easier on you. There is an asshole, a sympathizer of the mullahs in one of the chats here. Iran is a great Persian empire. 7,000 years in the making. Blow me. Iran has nothing to do with Parthia. Nothing at all. And the few Parthians left in what is now Iran are persecuted daily. The second thing is, did Iran attack Israel? Yes. multiple times, almost fucking daily for 47 years. Iran destroyed Tel Aviv in your dreams after about 2 kilos of peyote. Iran invented tech and shared with Russia and China. Invented tech? What? How to throw a goat 100 yards with a trebuchet? True ancient civilization. No, it isn't. This is so fucking deranged. Tell me one war that the U.S. not started. God, how many do you want, moron? Starting with World War One, World War Two, with both of which we joined at the very end. How about the war in Indochina started by France? How about the war in Georgia started by Russia, or in Ukraine started by Russia? It's not so much that these people are wrong, is that they are so stupid. So there you go. Oh, stupid person. Peace off.
Okay, I just looked up U.S. military aid to Israel. In 2024, we gave Israel $12.5 billion in military aid. 12.5 billion. You know how much money we spend in this country, the federal government? We spend 7 billion like every hour.
7 billion we spend for preservatives in girls' bathrooms in high schools.
Yeah. No, we gave Israel 12.5 billion in 2024. Like you're not missing. That isn't tax money that you're missing. That isn't tax money that should be going. If okay, let's say we put that in the what is it called, the giant pot of money that the federal government dips into.
Oh, you'll never find it.
Well,
but the thing too, Thomas, is we have spent exponentially more containing Iran.
Absolutely.
Exponentially more. And whatever we give to the Israelis also serves to contain Iran and enemies of the U.S. Israel is an ally of the U.S., the strongest one we have. And so far, the most loyal we have. And they are, by their actions, by their very survival, protecting American interests.
Well, this is the thing, that 12.5 billion, if we take that money back from Israel, essentially it's as valuable as confetti.
Yeah.
It's
your governor misplaced twice that amount that were supposed to go to the homeless and never made it.
Exactly.
Twice that amount.
That was actually more. It was 26 billion. So
right. Almost 3 times that amount.
Let's see.
So we're talking less than peanuts.
Okay, federal government spending per hour. Haha. Google AI doesn't have an overview because it's too stupid.
Okay. Holy shit. This YouTuber is gone. Now you're loyal Goyim slaves of the chosen people. I'm telling you, people who support Iran are nothing but shite. So there we go. Out they go. And we shall never see the fucker again.
Well, I mean, that's not an argument. You're a loyal Goyim slave isn't an argument. That you're not arguing your position. How about arguing your position? I want people who don't support aid to Israel to explain, to support their position. Tell me why we should not support Israel. Um, and don't tell me it's because we can't afford it. We can't afford $12.5 billion. We can, regardless of how much money the national debt is, how much the deficit is. We can afford 12 billion because that would be 12 billion is like what, a rounding number? It's almost non-existent when it comes to the federal budget.
Not only it is a rounding number, it is useful for us.
Well, exactly.
Look at all the work we don't have to do in Iran. Because I'm going to say it again. I said it in the introduction. I'm going to say it again. We are not fighting Israel's war. Israel is fighting ours.
Of course.
Israel is carrying the weight of the mistakes of administrations from the moronic peanut farmer onwards. And what Israel is now doing is eliminate a serious threat to world threat to our economy. And if you thought that the closing of Bab el Mandeb was bad, imagine the closing of Bab el Mandeb and Hormuz at the same time.
Well, also, okay, Iran attacked Israel through its proxies. Bashar al-Assad, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Khatib al-Hezbollah in Iraq, and Hamas in Gaza. Iran has directly attacked the United States. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Quds Force have directly, not through proxies, but they themselves have attacked us since 1979. The list is absolutely endless.
Last year alone, they fired rockets at the American consulate in Erbil from Iran.
Yeah. No,
not Khatib al-Hezbollah, the Quds Force from Iran. Yesterday, Khatib al-Hezbollah threw rockets at what is it called, Al-Ansar, the American base in Iraq.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They did it again. They do it all the time. They've killed thousands upon thousands of Americans, soldiers and civilians.
Right.
Way more than Israelis, if you ask me.
Let's say you oppose the war in Iraq from the beginning. Does that mean you think American soldiers deserved to be killed by the Iranians? Does that mean you think that it is completely understandable that the Iranians were killing American soldiers and that we had no moral right to retaliate against Iran? We never actually directly retaliated against Iran, but the British did. The British sent what's called the Long Distance Desert Group into Iran, and they leveled the entire town that was making the explosively formed penetrators that were killing Americans in armored vehicles. There were gun runners there were financiers, and the British leveled the entire town and killed everybody in it because we didn't have the guts to do that. And then eventually we went into Syria and we killed an Al-Qaeda fucker who was being supported by Bashar al-Assad, meaning he was being supported by Iran. Oh, that's another thing. The Iranians were directly involved in 9/11. They admitted as much. They gave free passage and logistical support to the 9/11 attackers. So
yes, and they trained them on how to take control of a plane with box cutters.
Correct.
At a mock-up 707 in Salman fucking Park near Baghdad. Right. And we're still jacking off over that.
Right. So,
and by the way, people talk about veterans and U.S. soldiers. 300 U.S. Marines on a peacekeeping mission. Mm-hmm. On a peacekeeping mission to assist in holding a truce between the slamball Palestinians and the Lebanese, were killed with a single bomb in their barracks while they slept. And we never retaliated for it. We should have
No,
leveled Iran.
no. So it's very okay. I'm going to give you a couple examples. American fighter pilots use heads-up displays in their helmets that were created by Israel. American Bradley fighting vehicles have reactive armor that was developed by Israel.
That was developed by Israel.
And American
Israel doubled the range of the F-35.
Doubled the what?
Range of the
Right.
F-35.
And the American urban kit that is fitted to the M1 Abrams tank to fight in urban environments is fitted with active protection systems that were developed by Israel. So those are three things that we got from supporting Israel. Now, if you don't support, if you think we should not be supporting Israel or giving them any, okay, yeah, let's say we should not be allied with Israel. We should not be giving them 12.5 billion per year. Give me three reasons why not. Okay. I'll preempt one of them. Supporting Israel does not make us more likely to be the victims of terrorist attacks from people in the region, because there's nobody in the region that has a beef with Israel anymore. Even Syria. Bashar al-Assad. Syria, the new leadership of Syria says we'd like to sign the Abraham Accords with Israel. Okay. So supporting Israel doesn't make us more likely. Iran didn't start saying death to America because we support Israel. They said death to America like the second they took after Jimmy Carter flew the Ayatollah in. We became the great Satan overnight, and we're the great Satan, and Israel is the little Satan. So the Iranians are after us. So give me three reasons why we should not be supporting Israel. I gave you three reasons why we should. You give me three reasons why we shouldn't.
Well, Gonzalo says that we shouldn't if we're willing to go and knock off Iran by ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. And that's what would be happening. That's what would be happening. At some point during the Trump administration, he would be facing a choice: blow up the mullah's atomic weapons creation system, or let them get the nukes. And he would have to blow it up because we cannot let Iran get nukes. Iran isn't North Korea. Iran isn't Pakistan. The Pakistanis have created more terrorist groups than any other country, but they have nukes. And so there's not much we can do against Pakistan. The Indians have nukes, and the Indians just mopped the floor with the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis just kind of took it. No nukes were used by either side.
Stuff their nukes right up the butthole, because they know that if they use it, there's not going to be Pakistan left.
Right.
And India knows that much of India won't be left either.
Right. And in terms of the terrorist groups that the Pakistanis create, the majority of them attack India and Afghanistan. There aren't very many Pakistani-created terrorist groups that come to this country and try and blow things up here. But Iran, with nukes, at some point the Iranians would give one of their terrorists a nuke and have him bring it into the country through Mexico or wherever, through Canada, and it would be detonated in this country, and the Iranian, not the Grand Mullah, not Khamenei, but one of them said, even if all Iranians die as a result of a nuclear war with America, it'll be worth it um, due to the damage we would inflict on the United States. What do you do when you're dealing with people like that? Let them get nukes?
There's so many things people don't understand on this. That I agree with all of your arguments. There are more. There are moral arguments to be made. There are moral arguments to be made. The Democrats like so much to invoke moral arguments instead of national security. In this case, we have national security and moral arguments at the same time.
Absolutely.
Eh, It's the ideal world. Everybody should have an easy agreement with this. Nobody, but nobody, is asking any American soldiers to go and die for anybody anywhere. It's a canard. It's a fallacy. It's a strawman fallacy, actually, or maybe a false premise, or both. Even if we needed to, I go back to my first point. This is not Israel's war. This is ours. We fucked up. We created and enabled the Islamic Republic by undermining the Shah, who was a strong ally of Israel, of the US, and of Europe. And it wasn't perfect, but considering what came after him, we should have done better just leaving him be.
Also, we could have pressured
We
him. We could have
we
pressured
could
him in a way.
we could have, yeah, we could have negotiated with him. We could have forced change with him. A, a far more pliable uh, and again, and a partner. Why Jimmy Carter got it between the vacuum in his head to undermine the Shah and to bring this medieval beast of Khomeini from exile in France, where he was adored, of course, because they always love savages in France, and literally put him in the center of Tehran and forced a revolution, and just a little while later they were taking over the American embassy because they hated our guts before they even took over. Why did we do that?
Well,
And
see,
having realized we made a mistake, why did we do nothing to correct it, even after Iran killed hundreds of American soldiers in the most cowardly manner?
well, in John Bolton's book, he said that when the Iranians started supplying the Al Qaeda with explosively formed penetrators in Iraq, Bush wanted to bomb the crap out of the Iranians.
Hmm.
And Condoleezza Rice told him that we shouldn't do that because we needed Iran for the Middle East peace process with Israel. So here's Iran saying we're going to wipe Israel off the map, and Condoleezza Rice says we need them to make peace with Israel. And it's like, okay, are you going to go there in your leather go-go boots and talk them into making peace with Israel? You know, they don't shake hands with women. They don't wear neckties because neckties are Western. Um, they hang people from cranes. They beat women who dare to show more than a little slit.
Beat, they kill, they mutilate and kill women who show their hair.
Yeah. So
We're talking about a throwback to before civilization.
correct. So there was never a chance in the world that the Iranian mullahs would make peace with Israel. It's not possible. Um, and for the American Secretary of State to believe that she can somehow talk them into it, that if we bomb them, they're going to get mad. If we bomb them, they would understand it because they would say, oh, they bombed us because we were providing EFPs. They wouldn't say, God damn it, where did that bombing come from? We weren't doing anything. We were doing nothing. We weren't doing nothing. They wouldn't say that. They'd say, okay, they bombed us because we were making EFPs. They understand being bombed for
Yeah.
doing shitty things. And we didn't have the guts to do that. And Bush was very female dependent. And I think it's because,
He was bushwhacked.
yeah, he his mother was a two-fisted mother who I believe made Bush could not stand up to Condoleezza Rice or Nancy Pelosi, and I think women in Washington knew that Bush was very
Yeah.
female dependent.
But remember, before Bush we had Clinton, and after
Yeah,
Bush we had Obama, and these sons of bitches got the Muslim Brotherhood in the White House,
yeah,
and went to bed with Iran and financed the mullahs,
right. But see,
and little shits like Blinken or like Ben Rhodes, who would do anything to hurt America in any way because they think we're the bad force in the world. They literally financed the latest campaign of terror from Iran.
but
We not
see,
only didn't retaliate, we gave them money so they could keep doing it.
right. You need to understand the leftist view of Muslim clerics. Remember when al-Baghdadi was killed, and the Washington Post referred to him as an austere scholar.
Oh, the austere Islamic scholar.
Yes, and that's how they view the mullahs. They're austere Islamic scholars, and we don't always agree with the way they do things, but who are we to judge? We dropped two atomic
Mhm.
bombs on Japan, so we're no better than them. And
Masha Amini should have known better than to show her hair.
well, uh, 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 what the hell's his name? Victor Davis Hanson says that leftists have what he calls the therapeutic worldview, in that all conflict is the result of misunderstandings. And so
Hmm.
you hear leftists. Tim Pool used to have a co-host, and this guy was convinced that he could have talked Hitler out of not carrying out the Holocaust just by he would find the right words to reach him, and it would be like that scene in Young Frankenstein where Gene Wilder is locked in the room with the monster, and he tells the monster, "Hey, good looking people like you, and because you're a good man." And the guy goes, the monster goes, he hugs him, and that's what people think about Hitler. What leftists think about Hitler, he was just a little boy who needed to be hugged. It's like, well, for one thing, he hated being touched by men. So if you tried to hug Hitler, you'd be dead. For another thing, he didn't murder. He didn't hate and want to murder every Jewish person in the world because he was a misunderstood child. He did it because he was evil, and he wanted to do it. The mullahs are evil. They enjoy
Yes.
what they do. They enjoy murdering people. It's not a question of misunderstandings. They enjoy committing mass murder. It's what gets them off. And
It's what keeps them in power.
yeah,
There's another question going on around there. They've been a day from obtaining nukes for 30 years. That is an oversimplification and not true. Uh, Number one, they started the nuclear program uh, 20 years ago, not 30. And they've invested close to $1 trillion in that program, a good chunk of it provided by us. And they have been a lot of starts and stops. Remember when Israel uh, hacked their systems and caused the uh,
Stuxnet file.
centrifuges, to accelerate too much and destroyed them. So they had to start from scratch again about 7 years ago. And throughout this time, Iran has been claiming that they want to develop their nuclear facilities for peaceful purposes only. Well, we know, everybody knows, the IAEA knows, Iran does not deny it, that they have enriched uranium up to 86%. 90% is what's required for nuclear bombs. For nuclear reactors for electricity, 3% is enough, and 3 to 6% is the standard around the world. Argentina is enriching uranium 2 to 6% for its nuclear reactor so that it can produce electricity. In medical equipment, and for some medical procedures, you need uranium enriched to about 20%. There is no peaceful use for uranium enriched over the 20% threshold. Period. End of story. When Iran is got tons of uranium enriched at 60% and are striving to get to 90%, the only purpose is to build nuclear bombs. At the same time, they have been embarked in a production of long range missiles that can reach up to 3,000 miles. Now, you know what they did last year with the 700 missiles they lobbed at Israel and what they're doing this week with Tel Aviv? Imagine if those were nuclear. What would the result be? When these crazy motherfuckers are pointing a nuclear gun at your head and you do nothing, you're either a moron or a coward or both. To eliminate the nuclear threat in Iran should have been a priority of this country 15 years ago. It would have been easy. Maybe it could have been negotiated, but I doubt it. But it would have been easy. Now it's more difficult. Now they built bunkers in mountains and bunkers 7 floors down. And it's making it incredibly more difficult to eliminate the threat. Well, we do what we can when we can. For the Israelis, it's even worse. For 20 years that this has lasted, they had been under threat because Iran constantly tells anybody who wants to hear that their purpose in life is to eliminate the state of Israel and all its inhabitants. And they are trying to produce nuclear weapons. Why do you think they do? What would they do with those nuclear weapons if not lob them at Israel like they're doing with everything else they have? They've been attacking Israel for 30 some years now. We cannot keep spending money. We cannot continue to live. And by the way, What would happen if these motherfuckers actually managed to bring a nuke to New York Harbor
Well,
on a
just
phantom ship?
just going back to the claim that Iran has been a day away from nukes for 30 years. Okay, as you pointed out, they've only been trying for 20 years. The reality is, every time I just looked it up, I did my own research. Every time the Iranians get close, the Israelis stop them.
Yes.
They've done it with they did it with a virus. They've done it with commando action. They've done it with sabotage. Every single time they've gotten close, the Iranians or the Israelis have stopped them. And the reason that the Israelis, okay, I just read a piece. That was from, let's see.
I'll be right back, but I'm listening, so keep going with
Yeah,
this.
this piece was written in 2022, and the author says that an air attacks to blow up the Iranian nuclear program would be very difficult because it's spread out, and Israel would need at least 100 aircraft in the air, and it would be incredibly difficult to surprise Iran with 100 aircraft. Israel, on the first night, had 200 aircraft. It was a complete surprise, but what nobody expected was that the Mossad would go in probably around November of 24 at the latest, build a drone factory and start taking out anti-aircraft systems. And okay, we're not getting a lot of factual information, but the anti-aircraft gunners have deserted their posts en masse. So my guess is that the Israelis have the ability to jam official channels and broadcast their own. They did this in Lebanon. They did this in Yemen. They've done this in multiple places where all of a sudden the whatever channel, the entire system will go down, and they'll be broadcasting an Israeli video in Arabic saying, don't attack us, we won't attack you. It's something like that. So my guess is that they told the anti-aircraft gunners, see, when you come in to carry out airstrikes, the first thing you do is you send in aircraft called wild weasels, and wild weasels are armed with high-speed anti-radiation missiles or harm missiles, and the wild weasel deliberately allows itself to be illuminated. All anti-aircraft systems have radar, and so the wild weasel goes in ahead of the other aircraft, and in the wild weasel is, their mission is to be illuminated by the enemy radar, and then it fires a harm missile, and the harm missile rides the radar beam down to the source and blows up the anti-aircraft position. So my guess is that the Iranian anti-aircraft gunners were told, leave your post, go home,
Or die.
Or die, and you'll be fine. The Israelis are brilliant at this operation. It's called suppression of enemy air defenses, or SEAD. And the Israelis now have air superiority. The next step is to gain air supremacy, which means that they can do whatever they want.
I believe that currently in northwestern Iraq, all the way to Tehran, they have air supremacy. They can do whatever the crap they want.
Yeah.
There is barely any anti-aircraft
Well, the Iranians
response at all.
They're using guns, and a gun is worthless these days.
It's useless. A gun against an F-35
it's not going to happen.
It's like tampons in boys' bathrooms. It's totally useless.
So the it's true that, I mean, it's not just empty jabber that the Iranians are close to getting nukes. Every time they've gotten close, in a matter of weeks or months or whatever, the Israelis
Yep.
stopped them. And this time around, they decided to go for regime change. And regime
Well, they
change,
have. The problem is that never before had the Iranians gotten to 86%. And this is like days away
yeah,
from. And the Iranians, of course, are claiming that they had enough enriched uranium for 10 bombs, which is, I believe, bullshit. But they're very, very, very damn close to it. The Israelis don't realize, and it's obvious based on what they're doing, that if we just hit the nuclear uh, uh, facilities in Natanz, in Isfahan, in Fordo, they're going to rebuild and they're going to continue.
yeah,
And we're going to have to do these every 3 years for eternity.
yeah,
We have just one of the biggest deterrents that Iran had to something like this was Hamas, Hezbollah, uh, and the rest of the militias, including the Houthis, aiming their rockets, missiles, and operatives uh, towards Israel. The original plan that the Iranians had for October 7th, which didn't work because, blessed be the Lord, Yahya Sinwar was a fucking imbecile who jumped the gun and wanted to look good. But the idea was a simultaneous invasion from Gaza, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, with nearly 200,000 um, terrorists that were to rush for Tel Aviv while Iran was bombing the living crap out of Israeli installations and overwhelm, taking advantage of the surprise, the IDF. And by the time the world figured out what was going on, there would be no Israel. That was the plan. That was the plan that you and I discussed very early on. It was originally relayed to me by Mordechai Kedar. But since Israel has secured documents in Lebanon and in Gaza that support this scenario. Yahya Sinwar jumped the gun and wanted to be first. And Israel's response to that in 3 days uh, prevented Hezbollah from joining. As a matter of fact, the first reaction of Hezbollah is you're on your own, we have nothing to do with this. Of course, that was a lie, and a week later they were bombing northern cities. People don't realize, but over 150,000 Israelis had to be evacuated from cities in northern Israel because they were being bombed daily. All of a sudden, in 2.5 years, Hezbollah is no more. Hamas is practically no more. Fatah is the same thing as Hezbollah, but they're begging for, let's negotiate. We're not going to do the same thing. I think they should be eliminated anyway, but they're no danger at this level now. The Houthis are still there, but they have been beaten into a state where they no longer represent a serious threat to anybody but themselves. And now it's the head of the snake. Iran's ability to mobilize these hundreds of thousands of terrorists on Israel's borders was one of its main deterrents. It's not there anymore.
no. I mean,
Destroying the nuclear facility is not enough.
no,
So the Israelis said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to decapitate the Army, the Air Force, the Quds Force. I'm pretty damn sure that they're going to put a missile up Khamenei's asshole any moment now. Any moment now. The mission is already out there. They need to find where the fuck he's hiding, and he's going to get one up his sphincter neatly, not touching a hair.
But somebody's going to tell the Israelis where he is.
Oh, absolutely. If it isn't another Mossad agent, it's going to be one of the Iranians who wants to be rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
And they're calling. You said of how they warn people, you know, go home and you'll leave. They're calling for the Iranian people to rise up against the mullahs. At one point, they will.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. They have done it spontaneously more than once. I will never forgive Obama for their betrayal in '09, and they will do it again. And in that case, we don't have to do this every 3 years again. When the dog is dead, there is no more rabies contagion.
The Israelis were criticized because some general referred to these periodic operations against Hamas as mowing the grass. Oh, it's not grass, they're human beings.
No, they're not humans. They're Hamas.
And, you know, the hatred that the mullahs have for Israel is not anything that you can. It's not subject to change. There's no words. You can't sit them down and you know find the right words to make them see the light and have a tear of regret and you know it's not going to happen. These people, you don't understand. They have the blood of thousands on their hands, and they sleep like babies every night. Like,
Yeah.
that's how Hitler was.
They're doing God's work.
Exactly.
And now that everything is blowing up, great. Maybe the 12th Imam is going to come out of hiding.
Yeah. No, what the Israelis should do is they should have some animatronic 12th Imam climb out of whatever well he's supposed to climb out of. Then have the Israelis like drop a bomb on him and see what the mullahs think about that.
Eh, I think that all of the mullahs are going to be dead before the 12th Imam comes out. And there is something to that our friends must understand. In this world, our national security does not end at the borders. Never mind the last 4 years when there were no borders. We depend for our economic stability, for our continued well being, for the continued development of our trade, of our industry, of our agricultural products. A world that is safe enough for our ships to go around the world wherever is needed and back without fear of attack. We need, in a world where you can use a passenger airplane as a missile, and any plane coming in from anywhere in the world going to land at, say, Dallas Airport can at the very last minute take a detour and land at the Capitol or the White House. And there wouldn't be time to scram any planes to stop them. In such a world, our defense does not end at the border. It must extend around the world. We need eyes, we need ears, and we need the capacity to react anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. With asymmetric warfare, we need to develop all kinds of uh, abilities and keep allies like Israel so that we can stop Iran without having to compromise our troops that are very much needed elsewhere. People need to understand national security is a global affair.
Well,
Fortress
okay, that's
America, Fortress America was bullshit 100 years ago. It is way less than bullshit today.
there's an attempt to bring more American assets to the Middle East to help defend Israel, and they're running into issues where the various commanders of the Pacific are saying we can't move those assets. We need to keep them here to like keep the Chinese at bay. And so
Yes,
with the mullahs gone, then we don't have to worry about the Middle East as much because
no,
the mullahs are the last great state sponsors of terrorism. A country like Libya, which under Gaddafi was a state sponsor of terrorism, it doesn't even have a functional government anymore.
no.
It's in the middle of a civil war that's been going
Well,
on since Obama
it,
overthrew Gaddafi.
it has two governments,
Yeah, exactly.
not
There's two
one.
governments. It has warlords. It's the usual thing, and you know there was the statement earlier was about paying for other people's wars. Um, if you're, I mean, okay, we don't actually do that. We've never done that. We the South Vietnamese bought weaponry from us. And in the case of Ukraine, obviously this is a reference to Ukraine. You know, as you and I have gone over a million times, we're providing them with weapons that we were going to scrap. So
Yeah,
we're not giving them.
that
We're not paying.
in some cases 30 years decommissioned already.
Right. We're not paying for the Ukrainian war, and the Ukrainians have turned more and more and more and more towards drone warfare, and we're not paying for that. They're paying for that.
No,
Um,
and they have revolutionized drone technology and manufacture. They're
exactly.
producing a shit ton of drones per month in underground factories all over Ukraine.
Exactly. So if we're going to talk about complicated global issues, we can't. There's something called reductionism, where you reduce it down to one sentence. I'm tired of paying for other people's wars. Well, that's almost a completely useless statement.
I would be tired if we did. But what about this? What if it is to our benefit
And it
that
is. I mean,
a particular country survive? We're not going to pay for it so that we have that area of the world close to us.
well, this is the thing that if it's up to the Europeans, then unfortunately the Europeans
Then we're
will.
fucked.
Well, the Europeans will allow Russia to take country after country piecemeal because they'll say, "Oh, it's not worth the fight," and then you know, at at some point, all these countries that want to dominate their neighbors, at some point, they turn their eyes on us. We could we tried to sit out two world wars, and in both cases, we were dragged in by people who we were not actually fighting at the time. And I think two times is enough. I don't think we need to learn that lesson a third time. I don't think we need to try and sit out more conflicts just to get dragged in at and in both cases too. After World War One, we disarmed ourselves. So actually, before World War One,
Hmm.
World War One, the majority of World War One was fought by National Guardsmen. There were a few new regiments that were created, but National Guard regiments were transformed into regular army regiments because they're in. We used British helmets, British gas masks. We did use American rifles, but some units had to use French helmets and rifles and French gas masks, and some units had to use British rifles. So, and we were only in World War One. We only engaged in combat for like a matter of weeks, and it's World War II. We went into World War II. We didn't start winning World War II. We were attacked December 7th, 1941. We didn't start winning the Pacific War until 1943. And we didn't land in Europe until June 6, 1944. So I just, we don't have to keep making the same mistakes all over again. Just because people want...
And we lost, what, 500,000 soldiers there?
In World War II, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine what it would be for people today when you win a war with 200 and they say, oh, our boys are dying. Holy crap. We shouldn't pay for others' wars. Listen, if we have the resources and we can have other people fight for us, why the hell not? But that's not the point.
Let's see. U.S. population in 1941. Come on.
About half as much as today.
133 million, and we're 333 million today.
So it would be like 1.5 million today, comparatively.
Yeah,
speaking.
So World War II casualties would have been about 1.5 million dead. Or casualties, yeah, you're right.
Well, let me put it this way. It was the equivalent of 1.5 million today.
Exactly. And the chances of having a transnational war, like I don't think we're ever going to have a declared war. We don't declare wars anymore, but I don't think we're going to have a war with China. I think the Chinese... there was just a bank catastrophe in China today that brought the whole population out on the streets in rage because they all lost whatever money they had.
We've been talking about the collapse of banks there for the past, 6 months?
Well, I saw a really sad documentary. The Chinese did what leftists want to do to us, and they started putting their population into 60-foot story apartment buildings, or 60-story apartment buildings, and they sold them as this, you're living in heaven. You're above the clouds. It's magnificent. Well, for one reason, or for one thing, each of these buildings was given a 50-year lifespan under the best of conditions. Mm-hmm. Now we have, like, in Chicago, isn't the Sears building still there in Hale and Hardy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the Woolworth building?
The Woolworth building,
or the Chrysler building?
The Chrysler building, the
Empire State, or the New York Trust building.
Exactly. So
how about the Hancock Tower?
Under the best of conditions, these buildings were going to last 50 years. However, it's prohibitively expensive to do maintenance, so they don't do any maintenance, and the buildings are falling apart, and so almost all the residents are having to move out because it's unsafe to live in these buildings.
Yeah. And the buildings end up demolished with the poor fuckers paid the mortgage for them.
Exactly. They showed the elevator. The elevator door opened, and the elevator was
it's crooked.
It was like that. It was like jammed sideways.
Yeah.
and the floor of the elevator was up about halfway up the doorway of the elevator, with the black shaft dropping 40 floors below, and there's nothing you can do. The
And sometimes your chances of survival are about the same whether you get into the elevator or miss it.
Well, this is the thing, that there are so many people crammed in these buildings that, again, under the best of circumstances, it might take you over 2 hours to catch your elevator, because the elevators hold like 10 people. They're designed to hold about 10 people. Let's say you can cram 20 people in them. It takes forever to get in an elevator. So you have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning just to get the elevator. You
Well,
catch the elevator at six.
that's okay, my friend. People who live in communist countries have training in waiting.
It's unbelievable. It all these buildings, basically what's going to happen is the buildings will collapse because they have no way to safely demolish them. That the Chinese don't know how to carry out safe demolitions.
Well,
Like,
they don't know how to carry out safe construction.
and
In,
safe construction.
in Rome, you can visit to this day the Pantheon.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful building with a humongous fucking cupola with an eye with a hole in the center. Uh, that is harder today than it was when it was originally built. What was it, 2,500 years ago?
Hmm.
The building is still there, it's not collapsed, it's not in any risk of collapsing. It is actually harder. People walk on that dome so they can throw petals into the Pantheon once a year. Uh, and there is no risk to it inside. And everything the Chinese build with cement, which is the technique used for the Pantheon, is destroyed inside of 50 years. And when I said inside of 50 years, sometimes they don't last 20.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they were saying. That these people signed up knowing that the building had been given a 50-year lifespan, but it's turning out that some of the buildings are uninhabitable after four
Yes.
years.
Where are the famous islands that China was building in the South China Sea?
They all sank. They all felt crumbled apart.
They literally crumbled apart. These people don't know how to use cement.
No.
There are people in the US afraid that the Chinese may do this or that. The Chinese haven't figured out how to build a house with cement. Give me a fucking break.
No.
And it's not like it's the best guarded secret in the universe.
Elevators.
The,
Elevators date, I believe, from the 1860s.
yes,
So the Chinese have,
I've ridden elevators throughout my childhood that were mostly from the 1870s and 1880s and are still operating. Otis.
let's see, history.
That, and when you look, Scott, he said the Three Gorges Dam. A piece of advice: don't live downstream from it.
Yeah, holy shit, forget that.
If you do, make sure that you go to sleep with a scuba dive, with a scuba outfit on.
Well,
Um,
okay, you're going to get however billion tons of water coming at you. So
mhm.
you're basically, the wave is going to hit you and it's going to strip off whatever scuba
Yeah,
gear
whatever
you
you have
have.
on. But those Otis elevators, they were like a cage. It was a wooden structure at the bottom with a cage, like a bird cage all around it. And those sliding doors, manual, of course. Um, that's how I grew up. And they were always in the center of the staircase. because that was the only place in the building where they could put it without breaking everything.
Wow, holy shit! This is unbelievable. The first elevator was developed by the Romans in let's see, uh, Archimedes built the first elevator in 236 BC. So the Chinese have had from 236 BC to perfect their elevators, and they haven't been able to.
Oh, those China. Everything that we have been saying for the past 5 years on these matters is coming true. I have a feeling that in 1 or 2 more years, we can retire having been correct on just about everything, including the demise of China. Um, I do believe more than ever that Russia is not going to last a shit lot longer in its current fashion. And
No,
Iran it's already with a couple of feet out the door.
well, the let's see. I've got yeah, the Israelis are doing what they did to Hezbollah. Every time the Iranians launch missiles, the Israelis destroy the launchers.
Yep.
Um, so at some point, Iran will no longer be able to launch missiles at Israel. And, you know, they've only been launching 100 at a time. The claim was that they learned from the 300 missile and drone attack, and they were going to fire 2,000 simultaneously, that they had 2,000 ballistic missiles ready to go, but they didn't have 2,000 launchers.
No, and more. They had. This is not something that I could confirm because, by the very nature of it, we won't be able to confirm it for a while. But I do trust the people who told me this that the Iranians had a shit ton of missiles ready to fire, and that's why the mullahs were threatening with an overwhelming response. The decapitation of the Air Force and the Revolutionary Guard and the Quds meant that the order to fire them never came. And as the lower echelons scrambled to figure out what the hell to do, that's when the Mossad launched the attacks with the drones to the already known launch sites, and 200 planes hit 100 different targets. And they literally destroyed a shit ton of missiles before they were even launched in the launchers. By the second day, when the Iranians had began to kind of walk out of the haze, they had a launch of a crapload of missiles, but half of them petered and fell to the ground before leaving Iranian territory.
That's what happened in 2024.
Yep. And then you had, again, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Egypt, Turkey,
Hmm.
Qatar. I mean, Qatar on the one hand condemns Israel, on the other hand, scrambled its planes to shoot down Iranian missiles.
Hmm.
I mean, really, if you want to understand Arab polity, you really have to study seriously because these people are different. And you had all of these multinational coalition, including the U.S., of course, shooting down Iranian missiles. The amount that actually made it to 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 Tel Aviv was minuscule compared to what the Iranians had planned.
But it
The
looks
Iron
like
Dome. The Iron Dome worked pretty fine, and the F-35s worked pretty fine, and a few got through, which is almost inevitable.
Well, what got through was almost certainly mostly warheads and not entirely. There was a close up video of what they said was a missile strike, but this thing was leaving this massive flaming trail that curved all the way down from the sky like a cable, and that was the fuel. So this was a warhead with like part of the fuel tank spewing fuel. So this was something that had already been hit by the Iron Dome, but the warhead came and landed right next to the cameraman.
Mm.
It's there are people who say the Iron Dome concept is a failure because the debris always falls, but what those people refuse to understand is that the Iron Dome generally hits missiles in such a way that the debris, if a missile is flying in this direction and it's exploded, the debris is not going to just drop out of the sky. It's going to
No.
keep flying in that direction and start to dissipate. And also the if you've noticed, you're not finding giant fuselages of missiles lying on the ground after being hit by the Iron Dome.
No.
They
Then
disintegrate.
every now and then you do. Very rarely.
Very rarely.
Very rarely, but as a matter of course you don't.
The,
There's another thing. Nobody claimed that the Iron Dome would be 100% effective.
no,
Otherwise, they wouldn't have the entire fucking population of Tel Aviv in shelters.
well, technically, the Iron Dome, the Israelis rated it something like 87 or 88% effective.
And it's performing to that and perhaps a little higher degree.
Yeah.
I spoke with a cousin of mine. I told you I have a cousin of mine, a son of my mother's first cousin, but really like a sister to her. A first cousin, 1 year older. They grew up together. They studied together, and Yaki. And that side of the family went to Israel in the 60s. So as he was about my age, he went through the IDF, of course, like everybody there. Now he was in a shelter in Tel Aviv with his granddaughters. His three daughters are in the IDF fighting someplace. One was in Gaza, the other two he didn't know. And you would say, you know what but that is life. It's not a tragedy. It's the way they're accustomed to living at this point. It's a sad thing to say, but there's nothing abnormal about, oh, they're attacking us again. Let's go to the shelter. And what they do, I saw pictures in the shelter, people drinking wine, talking. You know, what are you going to do? Scream? And that is, it's a resilience in these people that is very, very, very hard to break. And just because one of the missiles went through and toppled the building doesn't mean much. The building can be rebuilt.
Also, they're at war. They Israelis have been at war since 1948, so they know better than anybody
They know better than anybody what is
what wars are.
and the systems are so effective that in the first wave of missiles there was one woman severely wounded. She later died in hospital, and about 14 other hospitalizations, mostly anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
was it.
the missiles that around 90% of the missiles that make it out of Iranian airspace and enter Jordanian airspace or whatever, they are destroyed. So
Yes.
you're seeing single digit numbers of impacts of either separate warheads when the interceptor hits the engine and the tail, it blows it up. The control surfaces of the missile are gone, and so it starts to tumble and it disintegrates. So,
Mm.
because these are fast missiles, and the warhead can still detonate if it hits the ground the right way, and so I would say probably maybe 1 or 2% of missiles are getting through intact.
Yep.
All the rest are detached warheads that are blowing up when they hit the ground. Because
Yep. And all the rest is not that many.
yeah,
It's not that many. One just fell in another city, and destroyed a building that wasn't reinforced. But a very old building in a small city. That's the one that we discussed at the beginning that had Israeli Bedouins in it.
mm,
Uh, but frankly, for an operation that targets civilians, these morons are a dismal failure. The Israelis are much better at protecting their civilians than the Iranians are attacking them.
well, I mean, this is no deterrent for Israel whatsoever.
No. And Scott here says, just like the Brits during the Blitz. Yes, there is a kind of nonchalant way of, okay, we need to go to the shelter, bring the bottle, and they wait. And while I was talking to him, I heard an announcement that people were being allowed to leave the shelter, but don't stray too far. Kind of like go out, take in the air, stretch your legs, but you might be here soon. And for them, it was okay, let's go walk. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Uh, Them, since their grandparents went through the Holocaust, fuck, their mothers went through the Holocaust, their fathers went through the Holocaust. Grandparents, great grandparents, that's for granted. But these people, many of them are one generation away. During the Holocaust, my cousin's mother was 13 years old. My mother was 12. Their cousins were gunned down by the Nazis in Brest. So, yeah, whether it is in Europe or elsewhere, whether it is suffering the Gestapo or getting news of your family being decimated, they all went through the Holocaust. And they've been surrounded by Nazis ever since. I am terribly optimistic, though, that with what's going on with Saudi and with Egypt and with Jordan, I'm very encouraged at the Arab countries defending Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a change in paradigm, most significant indeed.
They're all sick of the mullahs. That
Hmm.
I remember years ago, Mohammed bin Salman said Saudi Arabia just wants to be a normal country, and that's a tacit admission that too many countries in the region are abnormal. And
Yeah,
Iran, under as an Islamic Republic, is an abnormal country. It's the laws that the mullahs have laid down are abnormal, and it's okay. The Israelis are now bombing the regular armed forces, so it looks like the regular armed forces had turned down any opportunity to you know oust the mullahs themselves. So
yeah.
the Israelis are showing them that was a really stupid idea. But
It was a stupid idea.
So far, it's the headquarters and the bases that have certain weaponry. So it could be there's still the besiege. The question is, what will the besiege do? And if they're smart, they'll take off their uniforms and
and
run off to their little villages.
run off to Yemen because the people of Iran are going to skin them alive.
Yeah, they're going to hang a lot of people, and who could blame them?
I'm not saying this in any derogatory manner. It's inevitable, and no, they cannot be blamed after what these people have gone through for 46 years. Uh, and the Bashir, it's gonna be a national sport. It's gonna be a national sport. A father whose daughter was returned to him terribly mutilated because she was showing some hair in top of her forehead because she wasn't carrying the hijab properly.
Well, this is what
Well,
leftists don't
if it was
understand.
if it was my daughter, I'd grab a gun and start hunting the sons of bitches the moment I could.
This is what leftists don't understand. The mullahs have professional rapists, and
Yes,
the rapists are rapists because they like doing it. So
yes,
these are not people who are deserving of being sat at a table and having someone hold their hands and beg them to be human beings. These are people deserving of a bullet in the head.
yeah,
When you're a
and
professional,
all the government officials, all the government officials who
yeah,
use the 48-hour marriage to rape 9-year-olds
yeah,
and then give a couple of $100 to the parents for the wedding.
yeah,
Eh, these are very sick bastards.
yeah.
Very sick. I I have several Muslim friends who, having been to Tehran, came out scandalized. In some cases, they abandoned Islam altogether because if this is being done in the name of Islam, I don't want to be a part of it. The perversions of the mullahs surpass anything that people can imagine.
Mhm.
So it's going to be good hunting. It's going to be good hunting the moment that the wall of security around them falls. And on that optimistic note, and somebody says that they're not going to be getting any pallets of cash anytime soon either. Uh, I do believe that President Trump played a fundamental role in tandem with Netanyahu. That Netanyahu was saying the other day when some morons here were saying that Trump was upset with Netanyahu for this or for that, and Netanyahu said, and we decided, the two of us, not to come out with any kind of information that wasn't true.
Mhm.
Let him believe that we're fighting. A lot of what happened in the last 2 months is perfectly understandable when you see the type of operation that Israel is conducting and the surprise. The mullahs did not see this coming.
No.
I remember I told people on the spaces last week, Wednesday night, Scott, who's here, I believe now, eh, asked me if there was going to be an attack on Iran. And I said it's imminent. I cannot tell you if it's going to be tonight, tomorrow night, or next week, because it's going to be whenever the surprise effect is greatest. But it's going to happen simply because we were taking measures all around the Middle East that suggested to me They already know it was coming. And once those things happen, perhaps another Scot. Okay, another Scot it was. Gonzalo was there too. Um, Once you are committed to something like this, it's going to happen.
Well, this is the second time that Trump aided the Israelis. Remember when the Israelis got Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, Netanyahu had flown to the United States for a meeting with Trump, and the Lebanese or Hezbollah figured that nothing was going to happen with Netanyahu out of the country. And that was the plan, was to make Hezbollah think that nothing was going to happen. And so Nasrallah was lured into his bunker where he was eliminated. And this time around, Trump basically said, oh, we're holding the Israelis back. We're holding them back. We're doing this for you, our buddy, our pal, Iran. We'll give you 2 months. And of course, he didn't say the day after the 2-month deadline passes, Israel is going to wipe you out. But he was in total coordination with Israel. I mean, of course. This is too important for Trump to say, "Oh, we can't help you. We can't do anything." It's
But there's more. All war is deception. When you're
exactly.
involved in this, you are not going to uh, say anything that will prepare the enemy for what's coming.
Exactly.
What Trump said about Iran, you got 60 days to have an agreement with us. And then he comes out today, 61, this is going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bad. He's doing the same thing with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I, it's sometimes it's even difficult, but not only is he not supporting Putin like many who were dead wrong with Iran, like Kakar Katarson, eh, they're dead wrong with Russia too. He's playing the same game. He's giving Russia the opportunity to walk out of it with some dignity left. But if they don't do it, all hell is going to break loose for them.
Yeah. And, Tucker said an attack on the Iranian nuclear sites will lead to the deaths of thousands of American servicemen,
Yeah.
but he didn't explain how you got from the one to the other.
No, and obviously it's not happening.
Well, it can't happen. The Iranians don't have the hardware to make it happen. They don't have the fighting men to make it happen.
I suppose the bloody imbecile, because that's what he is, thought that an attack on Iran would force America to disembark troops. By the way, how the fuck are those troops going to get there? Because we don't have them there. It took us 6 months to prepare for the invasions of Kuwait or Iraq. You have to move 300,000 people halfway around the fucking world and stage them someplace.
Well, and there's no one vessel that holds 300,000 troops. So
not all of them to put together, if you ask me.
Exactly. So we can't just ship 300,000 over in the world's biggest ocean liner.
No, it would just take another 3 to 6 months to fly equipment and to fly ammunition and to transport people. We need to stage them somewhere. Where the fuck are we going to stage them? Syria? Qatar? I'm sure the Jordanians are going to be fine. It's not that fucking easy, you moron!
But see, Tucker is reductive. He's reducing everything. an attack on Iran will lead to the deaths of thousands of Americans. And all his fans go, or.
Yep.
And they don't think about the things you and I think about, which is,
No.
wait a
Or
minute.
or anybody else. Kelly is giving me a nice thing there on the chat. This is the last one before we proceed to close because we're over the time. Uh, Firing Susan Rice from the Pentagon. Firing 100 national security advisors in the intelligence helped. Eliminating security clearances for Obama overstays helped. I'm sure there is more to come. Yes, and this is an interesting aspect. Getting rid of the Obamanites in intelligence and the Pentagon was crucial in maintaining secrecy and avoiding leaks. There was a leaker that is now being charged, and we'll probably see the slammer before this is over. Eh, but then all of them had their security clearances revoked, got the kick, got the boot, got them out, and suddenly we have a very tighter scenario where we can do things without CNN knowing it before Netanyahu. Not bad. And Kelly's absolutely correct. Anyway, people, I haven't been bothering you throughout this thing. There are about 1,200 watching now. Remember that these things are free to watch, but they're not free to produce, and it costs money and time, and we need your support to continue to do this. Usually, I would have asked for contributions to our Odyssey channel, but because Odyssey is still trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do. By the way, Thomas, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they apparently they're apparently launching a new program, a portal that would allow us to incorporate all of the stuff we did in Odyssey into QVTV that we had already prepared in our website. So maybe that's the way we'll go, so we can have full control and not fall prey to tantrums of others. But I'll keep you posted later. In any case, so the two ways that we have now that you can help us by buying us a cup of coffee are subscribing to me to at the brother guy at X, $5 per month. It's a cup of coffee every 2 months. Come on, no big deal. And quoteverum.com/supporters, where you can donate any amount, either one time or monthly. And if you can do that, we'd very much appreciate it. Either way, we love you all except the trolls. I really, really, really don't like trolls, and I don't think Thomas is too fond of them either. So remember, questions. There was somebody uh, on one of the chats apologizing. I didn't mean to argue with you, just asking questions. And in fact, we answered several questions, and I very much appreciate. That was Angel. I very much appreciate the questions. They're still doing it, but sorry, Angel. We'll pick it up next time. Um, Disagreement is fine. Having a different, what we've done with those questions was explain our position and hopefully helping people understand or understanding ourselves if we're wrong. What I don't tolerate and never will is people who hijack the conversation because they're either too narcissistic, too stupid, or too drunk to have a conversation like a normal person. Those who hijack the conversation do not offend me. They offend everybody in the chat, and there are dozens right now. Can't have that. So if you participate in the chat with us, Be free to disagree all you want. Just don't be disagreeable. That's all we ask. Can you add to that, Thomas, or do you think that kind of
Well,
puts the
I mean,
question?
that's my opinion. You can disagree. There's just ways of disagreeing. You know, like if you can refrain from snark and insults and all of that. I mean, Saul and I disagree, but we don't attack each other and insult each other. Um, Maybe that makes us boring. I don't know, but I just everybody's insulting everybody right now, and I find that boring. It's the easiest thing in the world to do.
Oh God, it's a 4-year-old thing to do.
No, I mean, there's people who disagree with the U.S. getting involved over there. Well, the Iranians just discovered part of a U.S. Navy missile interceptor inside Iran,
Oh
which means that the U.S. Navy intercepted a ballistic missile as it was taking off.
yes,
So
they're
that's
they're they're, they're doing that from the Arabian Gulf.
yeah. Well, apparently this is from an Arleigh Burke class ship, and it intercepted the Iranian missile as it was, missiles fly in a parabolic trajectory. So as this thing was rising up, we fired a missile at it, an interceptor, and hit it while it was still over Iran. So we're in the middle of this. We're in it, and we're going to be in it till it's over. The Israelis are projecting this war will take weeks, possible, or it could end very quickly, depending on what the Iranians do. If they decide to hang the mullahs themselves, it'll be over much quicker.
Yeah,
But
but no, the stranglehold that the mullahs have on the population is going to take a lot of um, destruction of equipment and bases.
mm,
And it's okay. Let them take their time. No rush.
yeah,
Take 2 weeks. Take 3 weeks. Who cares? They're gone. They're going to be
but
gone anyway.
we're involved, and I support our involvement, and
Yeah.
I support giving 12.5 billion per year to Israel, which is way down from what it used to be. Um, and I support that not only because of what we get in return, but because I think it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
I happen to think that Israel is a worthy ally. Um, and there's a lot of things the Israelis do that I disagree with.
Oh,
They,
don't get me started because we're going to be another hour
yeah,
lambasting the things we don't like. Another thing people don't need a reminder. There are 700,000 American citizens living in Israel.
yeah.
Do we not protect them? Do we abandon American citizens who go to Israel to their fate? If they were in any other place in the planet, we would use our resources to rescue them. We would use our resources to kill those who are trying to kill them. But if it happens to be in Israel, we just watch. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's appropriate. And I do think that's very much an American interest.
Mhm. It's in our interest to have as many friendly countries in the world as possible. And through Israel, we are making friends with people who have traditionally held us in suspicion, if not outright hostility. And through the Abraham Accords, basically, we're going to end up with the whole region. I mean, for God's sake, a former Al Qaeda terrorist is now running Syria. He wants a Trump Tower built in Damascus. Trump agreed to take Syria off the state sponsor of terrorism list, and he says we'll see. We'll see what he does. He's got to do a lot to prove things, and we'll see what he does. And so far, so good. This is what we want. We want to be friends, and if the Syrians, as today, they end up having to, if the women have to swim in bikinis in the beach, so be it. That doesn't mean,
if they want to do that, that's fine.
It doesn't mean that we can't be allies with them. It doesn't mean we can't be friends with them. The idiots who tried to march to Gaza found out that cultures are different. And in some cultures, they'll hit you until you go away. And they're not used to that.
The Egyptians will.
Yeah.
I loved one of the videos because one of the Egyptians took off his shoe and started hitting on the Canadian.
Yeah.
And I was having such a fucking laugh because he literally hit him with the shoe until he retreated.
Yeah.
But you and I know the contempt that Egyptian was showing for the Canadian bullshitter.
Absolutely. No, they were. I mean, these people, and they didn't learn anything. They're all weeping. We didn't break any laws. Why?
Yeah. But actually, they are breaking the law there.
Of course. But see, they can't be.
You're not going to talk to an Egyptian soldier the way you talk to your Toronto cops, you moron.
Well,
that is against the law.
They couldn't be bothered to learn anything about Egypt before they went.
No.
And then that soup bowl haircut Welsh madman talking about the stink of empty breasts, and he's saying, "Help us in the name of Islam. You're all Islamic brothers together." And it's like, holy shit! Did you actually say that?
I thought they were gonna shoot him.
Yeah.
Do not obey orders. Help us. We're doing this for you.
Yeah.
What a fucking nutcase.
But did you notice that the guy translating for him started hesitating longer and longer as he was just like, oh,
he started to fear for his own life.
Yeah.
But anyway, fuck those idiots. I hope they do more of these. I hope they literally try to push those Egyptian soldiers.
Oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
The moment there's contact, all bets are off. And I hope they do, because they deserve what would be coming. For the guy in... there's another one dropping a buck in YouTube. For the guy who was asking all the questions, when I said, just ask the questions, don't be a troll, he says something like, what is it? Something to the effect is, I hope I wasn't. No, that's why we've been answering the question, even though you are a contrarian, my friend. It's okay because you are respectful, and you keep asking your questions in an educated manner, so to speak. So the rest we can have a dialogue on. And thank you, Thomas, for your 10 over there as well. And having said all of these, and Nog has promised me he's not a troll. If I thought you were a troll, you'd be gone, baby. I really have no patience for those. They were shouting "fuck Egypt" in the buses that were put in.
Yeah.
A word of advice: if there is such an imbecile watching us today, If you're going to Egypt in a bus controlled by police and you might end up in prison, refrain from saying fuck, because you will be in unholy ways. You're going to hope that you were taken to a federal penitentiary accused of pederasty. You have no idea what those people will do to you.
And you don't want to
Shit.
find out.
And remember, poor Logan, what's her name? That in 2 seconds the lights went off, and in less than 5 minutes, something like 50 people raped her. How the hell can you do that physically?
Mm-hmm.
There is no time, which means they're very good at raping.
Definitely.
Don't give them any reason. I know it's not funny, but I have to find the funny in everything. Greta goblins, yeah. Well, Greta is safe. I don't think anybody will ever rape Greta. It's a natural impossibility, and her sister even less. Lara Logan, that was the poor woman indeed, and I don't want to make fun of her because there's nothing to make fun of what that poor woman went through. But that shows you what can happen in 2 seconds in Egypt if you don't know the signals, if you don't know uh, the warnings. So if you're a leftist asshole going to Egypt, try to behave because you have no idea how this is going to end up for you guys. Uh, I think I'm done with all of this.
Okay.
Uh, we did the thing. Oh yes, tomorrow Quad meet 10:30 p.m. Tuesday VIP room 9:30 p.m. in this channel. Uh, not in YouTube. So come to us. And with this, I'll have to bid you all good night. Thomas, you have a last word for us.
Derogation.
Derogation. Thank you so much. There are so many things we need to derogate. Live long and prosper, my friend.